As I am certain has already been said, or at the very least mentioned today to a certain group of American athletes, great moments provide great opportunity. Keep this in mind as we go through the day, because in almost everything we discuss here, this same mantra will apply to a number of people and issues we discuss. Kick it off. Check this edition of Newsmax Now with John Bachman.
Thank you for that, Ed. We'll start with some economic news. This week, U.S. rates on fixed mortgage declined for a second week in a row. According to mortgage buyer Freddie Mac, the average rate on a 30-year loan dropped from 4.14% from 4.17%, down about 0.03% there. And the average for the 15-year mortgage fell from 3.22%, or down to 3.22% from 3.0%. Mortgage rates are below where they were just 1 year ago when they started to spike after the Federal Reserve signaled it may start winding down its stimulus plan. They're also seen as somewhat of an economic indicator as to the health of the nation's economy. And there's also been another big break in the IRS scandal, this time involving U.S. Senator Chuck Grassley. An email sent from Lois Lerner's BlackBerry reveals that Lerner suggested the Republican senator should be audited by her agency. The senator said this kind of thing fuels Americans' suspicion that the political targeting is solely at the hands of the IRS. Now, earlier today in Washington, D.C., we talked with attorney Cleta Mitchell. She told J.D. Hayward on America's Forum that Lois Lerner will never talk to investigators about the IRS targeting because she's afraid of what the Justice Department will do.
John, let's go to a story that has Washington buzzing. Startling revelations continuing to come to light in the IRS scandal after newly released emails shows the Internal Revenue Service not only targeting Tea Party conservatives, but United States Senator Chuck Grassley, Republican.
Well, Mitchell was saying, sorry about that, that was the wrong clip there, but Mitchell saying earlier on America's Forum that if Lois Lerner did in fact speak, the Justice Department would go after her, and then if she doesn't speak, they would protect her. She also says if the truth does come out, the Justice Department will target her. Mitchell likened the Lerner situation to what happened in The Godfather, where people were rewarded for keeping quiet but punished for speaking out. Senator Grassley, meantime, was one of 12 Republicans who urged Congress to investigate the IRS back in 2012. And Republicans cite IT experts in to help recover the emails the IRS claims were destroyed in a hard drive crash. And things are not necessarily looking good for President Obama, not just because of the IRS scandal. House Speaker John Boehner says he intends to sue the president. Boehner says the lawsuit accuses President Obama of failing to carry out laws passed by Congress and enumerated in the Constitution. The move to sue Obama comes as the president continues to use executive orders to further his agenda. Boehner says the president is abusing his power and claims Obama only ignores the law, but not only ignores the law, but he also brags about it. Boehner described the president as arrogant and incompetent. Now, while the lawsuit hasn't been filed yet, Republican Congressman and Speaker and leader of the party, John Boehner, sent a memo to House Republicans yesterday indicating that he plans to move forward sometime in July. We're back with more news in 30 minutes.
The Constitution makes it clear that the president's job is to faithfully execute the laws. In my view, the president has not faithfully executed the laws. We have a system of government outlined in our Constitution with the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. Congress has its job to do, and so does the president. And when there's conflicts like this between the legislative branch and the administrative branch, it's, in my view, our responsibility to stand up for this institution in which we serve.
Those words, more talk. A lot of talk floating about the Beltway that perhaps, just perhaps, former IRS official Lois Lerner will be enticed to tell all about what really happened over those missing emails if and when she is granted immunity from prosecution. For those believing this is a real possibility, we send you to the Michael Corleone School of Witness Testimony and invite you to consider the reality of this folly. That and much more on the docket. Welcoming political author, commentator, pollster, campaign consultant, and the man who could teach Michael Corleone a thing or two about the American political system, Dick Morris, joins us on Midpoint. Dick, how are you today? Hello, Dick, you there?
You're making me an offer I can't refuse.
You just want to.
You're making me an offer I can't refuse.
You milked it beautifully. I got it. That's perfect. Stay right there, okay? Because okay, let's make everybody another offer here. Let's make them the offer of seeing exactly what John Boehner said. Here's part of the memo that he had sent out, because I think everybody needs to digest the exact wording of what he had written to his House colleagues in a memo. If the current president can selectively enforce, change, or create laws as he chooses with impunity, without the involvement of the legislative branch, his successors will be able to do the same. This shifts the balance of power decisively and dangerously in favor of the presidency, giving the president king-like authority at the expense of the American people and their elected legislators. Dick, the one thing that strikes me about this, I've already seen a lot of conservative scholars and lawmakers arguing that he doesn't have a legal standing in this suit. So what is John Boehner up to?
Well, the issue of standing will be resolved as the case unfolds. The importance of the Boehner announcement today, and I think it was probably timed that way, is that it coincides with today's Supreme Court decision, a unanimous decision by the court, released about 20 minutes ago, indicating that Obama overstepped his constitutional authority in making recess appointments to the National Labor Relations Board. Now, it was a unanimous decision written by the liberal Justice Breyer, an appointee by President Clinton. Now, the conservatives said he wouldn't have that power at all, and the liberals said he made the appointments in a recess that was less than 10 days, and therefore it was illegal. But the important point is that this is, in effect, a congressional stop sign, a judicial stop sign, about the expansion of presidential power. And now Boehner is bringing that into center stage by commencing this lawsuit. And I think ultimately a president is responsible more to the court of public opinion than to the judicial courts. And I think that both of these, a statement by Congress and a statement by the Supreme Court, by the other two branches, that he's overstepping his authority, I think is going to be very damaging to Obama. And I think it's the beginning of a series of court rulings that will rein him in. I would draw the analogy to the 1930s when the Supreme Court reined in Franklin Roosevelt in the New Deal. Ultimately, he got around them by threatening to pack the court, and all the old judges quit, and he appointed new liberals. But the court, I think, is very much looking askance at this expansion of power. Even the decision a few days ago to permit the EPA to regulate power plants decisively rejected a core element of the EPA contention, which is that it had the authority to regulate new sources of emissions, which it had never regulated before. And Scalia, writing for the court, for a majority that was liberal, said, no, you don't have that authority. Again, a unanimous court saying that. You can't regulate things that the laws have not given you the power to regulate. What you can do is take the sources you're already regulating and regulate them for greenhouse emissions in addition to pollutants.
Let's look at the other decision here that came out of SCOTUS, and that is the cell phone decision as well. I have talked to a lot of friends of mine in law enforcement in the last 24 hours who are very concerned about this. They understand civil liberties, of course, but they also understand the need, as one of them told me, to go get the bad guys. And they're looking at this as something that will really hamper them in a new technological age. So in your opinion, then, how do you see this then shaking out then? Because certainly I don't think we've heard the last of this, and I would imagine there's going to be a lot of challenges as well.
Well, for what it's worth, I support that decision of the court, because on your cell phone you have your entire life. It's not just a limited thing. You have every single thing you've ever done, every thought you've had, every appointment you've had, every place you've been. It's all sitting there. And giving someone access to a cell phone without a warrant essentially gives them access to your entire life, far more so than searching your home, where a warrant is required. Cell phones, I'd much rather someone search my home than my cell phone. But from a political point of view, here again, you have the same formulation, the legislative and the judicial branches teaming up to limit executive authority. In this case, we have the judiciary saying you can't go into cell phones without a warrant, and we have the legislative branch, the House, passing a bill saying that the NSA cannot open emails without a search warrant, and that the criteria for that search warrant can't be reasonable suspicion. It's got to be probable cause, much harder barrier to reach. And what's amazing about that bill, Ed, is that it passed with overwhelming bipartisan support. The Republicans voted for it by a margin of about 50 votes, and the Democrats voted for it by a margin of about 120 votes. And now it goes to the Senate, where it's almost inevitably going to pass. And it's veto-proof because it's in the Defense Appropriations Bill. So in both of these instances, within a few days, you have the other two branches of government kicking back at this expansion of executive authority under Obama.
Dick, move on to Lois Lerner, of course, in the Internal Revenue Service scandal. Scandal, I think, might be light to use that word at this point in time. I don't know about you, but I was amused when I saw the story that said Lois Lerner may be asked to deliver testimony and may be granted political immunity. And I swear to you, Dick, the first thing I thought of was Frankie Pantangeli sitting there in The Godfather, looking across at the senators and looking back at Michael Corleone and knowing full well that he wasn't going to say anything and not giving him a thing. I just don't see where any discussion of that will go whatsoever, because I don't see it happening. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I think it is less a factor of coercion, as Cleta Mitchell said earlier, than it is ideology. I think Lois Lerner is a left-wing ideologue who will gladly take a bullet for the team. And the fact that she wouldn't be prosecuted if she tells the truth doesn't matter. She still isn't going to tell the truth. But I think this scandal has many, many legs. First of all, when you have an email, you can subpoena not just the sender, but the recipient. So you can subpoena the White House and say, give us all emails that anyone here got from Lois Lerner. And I think they're going to do that. And secondly, in this IT age, experts I've spoken to are almost unanimous in saying that anything is retrievable and can be brought up. The important point is, because they lost this, by the way, a poll just out by Fox News says that 76% of the American people believe those emails were deliberately destroyed, including 63% of Democrats and 64% of liberals, a genuine national consensus. And I think that the fact that the people believe they were destroyed, as do I, indicates that there may well be explosive material on it. And when you go through the IRS scandal, Ed, the key point to remember and never forget is that monkeying with the IRS and using it to go after political opponents was the second article of impeachment voted by the Judiciary Committee against President Richard Nixon. And that is one, it's a field without a lot of precedents. There have only been 3 impeachment investigations of U.S. presidents. And if there's a precedent for that, it's a very important precedent. So there may well be a smoking gun. I would even say that the loss of those emails creates what lawyers would call a rebuttable presumption that there is a smoking gun. And that's going to be very important to follow. This one really could go all the way.
Dick Morris, a pleasure to talk to you again, my friend, and trust me, we will both be talking to our accountants very soon and making sure that we're prepared just in case something may happen, because we're talking about the IRS. Dick, a pleasure, my friend. Be well. We'll talk to you again next week.
Steve Stockman, a congressman from Texas, had a great line. He put in a bill saying the dog ate it routine, giving IRS taxpayers the ability to lose documents and claim that their dog ate it.
I'm all for that. I'm all for that. Dick, thanks a lot. We'll talk to you again next week. Dick Morris joining us right here on Midpoint. Coming up next, the next Speaker of the House. Whom will that be? And we also need to talk about some of the shifting power inside the Beltway. That's coming up next on Midpoint, where we question everything.
Are you feeling tired, run down, low on energy? Well, you could be just like millions of Americans whose thyroid gland isn't functioning the way it's supposed to. Well, now there's hope to change all of that. Introducing Actilin. Actilin is a premium nutritional supplement designed to support optimal thyroid function. Actilin has 17 powerful ingredients that support adrenal health, thyroid function, energy, and your immune system. Actilin was formulated by the renowned holistic practitioner, Dr. David Brownstein. And now, for a limited time, you can get a free bottle of Actilin with our special offer. You pay only for shipping and handling. Act right now and get Dr. Brownstein's free special report, A Doctor's Guide to a Healthy Thyroid. Get Actilin and the special report. Sign up today at getactilin.com. That's getactilin.com. Or call us at the number below.
Get ready, America! The Affordable Health Care Act is here, and it's got everyone asking, how do I find affordable health insurance that's right for me? The answer is simpler than you think. Pick up the phone and call I Can Benefit right now. Waiting for you is a team of licensed insurance agents who understand health care reform and can help you find the right plan to take care of you and your family's health, because nothing is more important. Have you been denied in the past? I have. Struggling to pay high premiums? Join the hundreds of thousands of callers just like you and let us help you find a plan that works for you and your budget. But I'm not stopping there. Call now and receive your free ICANN prescription savings card. Save up to 85% on prescription medications at over 60,000 pharmacies nationwide. Don't wait. Call now and get the answers you deserve and a price you'll love.
Call toll-free 1-800-426-2983. That's 1-800-426-2983. Call now.
If you're one of the 15 million Americans with food allergies, you might feel anxious about dining out, but you don't have to be. Visit safefair.org for more information and resources to help you enjoy a safer restaurant experience.
A public service message from Food Allergy Research and Education.
Sometimes we're unfairly defined one way, but we do have women and we have Hispanics, and we're young in the House right now, on average by 5 years. Our leadership team 17 years. So you think about 27 members under 40 and what that means as far as next generation leadership. We have a deep bench, and that's all very exciting to me.
Despite what some people might think, John Boehner will not be the Speaker of the House forever. Sooner or later, he will surrender the gavel and somebody else will pick up that mantle. The question is, who will that person be? How will it change the power structure in Washington? And will it bring America any closer to getting things decided? That, the snapback from the Mississippi runoff election, much more. Welcome in Midpoint now. Columnist for the Huffington Post, host of his self-named talk show, Gary Duff, checks in with us today. Gary, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Ed.
It is a pleasure, my friend. Let's go ahead and get right to Cathy McMorris Rodgers, who seems all excited. She's thrilled. She's talking about the base. But while there are those articles out there that will say she is a potential logical next choice, is she really?
You know, I think she is. I think it's a big deal to have Republicans represented by a female voice. And she provides that, especially a new narrative for Republicans to move to. You hear a lot about Tea Party and social conservatives bickering. This new layer of Republicanism, this return to compassionate conservatism, is something we saw in her rebuttal at the State of the Union address. And it's something that will lead her forward. You know, she's putting a lot of legislation forward now, one that's going to deal with the VA and some of the issues that they have been having. And she's going to continue to work on women's issues. You hear Hillary Clinton running when she runs for president, if she runs for president, talking a lot about women empowerment. Cathy McMorris Rodgers is taking that. She had that before Hillary was talking about it. And she's going to run with that and change the party, provide Republicans with a new narrative. Because when Democrats ran against Republicans in 2012, what they said was that Republicans were not the party of women. Cathy McMorris Rodgers changes that.
All right, now you brought up the phrase compassionate conservatism here, which I think is fair. Sure. However, you will have to agree with me that there's a good part of the nation right now that doesn't see the conservative movement, whether it be the standard GOP or the Tea Party themselves, being compassionate about much of anything these days. It is a perception that is constantly foisted forward by a number of people. So how then does Cathy McMorris Rodgers and the people she would bring along with her change that perception? That's going to be tough.
Yeah, well, you know, if she becomes Speaker, which is something that I talk about in the piece, if she becomes Speaker, something that she does is open people to new talking points. She talks about immigration. She talks about being open to the idea of immigration reform. She wants to change the way that we've been treating veterans. We've seen the Obama administration do a terrible job when it comes to getting veterans care. She's proposing a bill just this week with another Republican from Florida to get VA care back on the table, something that she talked about in Spokane, where she comes from, her district, and opening some VA hospitals to get veterans there and not put them on waiting lists. So I think that's pretty compassionate, and I think that's pretty, nice of her and good of her to get that back on the table. And a lot of people who look at the speakership, what that job really is setting the agenda. So she'd have the opportunity to get a lot of these women's bills that she had been preferencing, getting women equal pay, getting women equity. So all these different plans that I'm mentioning, these are going to be back on the table, and these are going to be the new agenda that the Republican Party will take on if she becomes Speaker.
Let's look at John Boehner, though, because Boehner is a very powerful man. When you see him speak, it doesn't make a difference if you like him or you dislike him. He does push forward that authority and that power figure that you have. Can McMorris Rodgers have that sort of power and that authority? And at the same time, would you not agree that there are going to be those on the left who will say, you're just putting a woman in there because we know that there's a war on women, so you're just putting it up there as nothing more than just a showpiece to show everybody that you seem to care about women? Two parts in that question.
Yeah, I'll go with the second question first. I'll start with that. Thing is, though, Republicans Kathy McMorris Rodgers has been in leadership since 2012. She has represented her district, and she had also represented women since 2007 as a head of one of these caucuses, working with Democrats and talking with Democrats and reaching across the aisle. So the thing is here, Republicans she's been in a leadership position for a long time. So she has enough credibility, and she has established herself well enough in the party for her to be able to give these critiques. And I don't think Democrats will be able to get off the fact that, first, that she has the credibility, that she has sponsored many bills, over 60 different bills have come to the table, that she's been a part of, and she's helped get legislation passed. So for Democrats to say, well, they're just throwing another woman in there, the fact is she is a very credible woman on the national field, and she has the experience to give proper critique. So if Republicans want to come at her and say, well, listen, she's just another woman, she's really not.
If Democrats want to come at her, of course, that's where part of it will be.
Democrats.
I think you might have said Republicans. Exactly. We'll go ahead and make that correction right away. Now, let me ask you about something else that the Republicans have to work on, whether it's John Boehner, whether it's Kathy McMorris Rodgers, or anybody right now. We are coming off 6 runoff elections this week where there is some angst being heard by members of the Tea Party here. There are those who say that the Republicans, the actual established Republicans, are now understanding the price of crushing the Tea Party, and that they want to crush the Tea Party and keep them down. There is a tremendous amount of money being spent here, $23 million by establishment-aligned groups, propping up the favorite House and Senate candidates in some of these contentious primaries. And nearly a third of the establishment money on this has come from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. All right, we've just given you a lot of numbers here. But there still is a fight going on here in the Republican Party. Is McMorris Rodgers or someone else got to take the lead here, and are they going to be powerful enough and influential enough to go ahead and bring these sides together into a unified party?
Yeah, well, I think we saw that when we were watching the House Majority Leader race with Congressman McCarthy. And also then you have this whip position which is now being taken over by someone who was favorable to the Tea Party, Steve Scalise. And so you have these two people who are also in the running for the speakership. And the reason I bring them up is because McMorris is part of that leadership, and these other two people have been fighting. McCarthy has been, by Congressman Labrador, has been sort of lambasted as not conservative enough. Then meanwhile, you have this whip position being filled by somebody who the ACU has given 100% conservatism rating. So you have these two people in leadership, and then you have Kathy McMorris Rodgers, who has sort of been my perspective, and the reason I wrote this piece for the Huffington Post was a new way, a new narrative. A lot of politicians get this flack that they are, power seekers. If she were the speaker, I think that narrative would change. She's a mother of several children, 3 children, 3 of which she had when she was a congresswoman. She's compassionate, she's warm, and that's what's been sort of her trademark in going forward. When she gave the State of the Union rebuttal, Republicans loved it. When she talked about her kids, Republicans loved it. And also in this situation, you can be a mother and still be a leader. You can still be a powerful woman. Slate did an article on her, profile on her, and said, listen, for Republicans, look at Cathy McMorris Rodgers. She can do everything, and that was the reason I wrote my piece. I think she can, and I think she can lead the Republicans.
I got about a minute and a half left here, and I can't let you get away without talking about something else that is being talked about right now in Republican politics, certainly. Cochran versus McDaniel in Mississippi, a contentious race that we have just seen. It's one of those 6 races that I'm talking about. There are all kinds of charges and countercharges flying back and forth here. There is racism being talked about. There is retribution being talked about here. From what you have seen, what is your take on what comes out of Mississippi now and how maybe it helps to shape or at least alter perhaps a national dialogue?
Well, you know what? We have to take every race into consideration, and look back at the history of some of the races that have been won and lost, and look forward to what can be new for the Republicans. I think we can take credence from the fact that Eric Cantor, if you don't look at your district and you don't pay attention to what those voters are saying, then you will lose. That dialogue is important. When Republicans need to get this House back in order, they need to try and win the Senate, they need to get these primary victories and move forward and be able to, coalesce a grander party and bring together all of these sides that you were talking about, Ed. The Tea Party, social conservatives, a lot of people are fighting, and we need somebody to bring that together.
They got a long way to go, and they got a lot of work to do. Gary Duff, the article again is Why Cathy McMorris Rodgers Could Be the Next Speaker of the House. It was on Huffington Post. And Gary, thank you so much for joining us. We'll do it again.
Thank you for having me. And just one last thing. If I'm wrong, you can always have me back to prove me wrong.
Okay.
You can always have me back.
We're going to take you up on that because we always keep everybody's numbers handy just in case, but that's good to know. Gary, thanks so much, buddy.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Gary Duff joining us now. And again, it's an awful lot of work for both sides to do. Coming up a little bit later on right here in this first hour of Midpoint, when is a flag much more than just a flag? I will tell you that because here on Midpoint, we question everything.
Why are so many companies looking to hire ITT Tech grads?
Carter Brothers is a leading nationwide provider of electronic security. When we hire, we look for skilled professionals with technical know-how, like many of our ITT Tech grads.
B&T Group is a leading engineering and construction firm specializing in the wireless industry. When we need drafting technicians, ITT Tech sends us candidates who have the right set of skills and align with our core values.
Innovation Controls is a global provider of engine-driven equipment management and control solutions. We like the hands-on educational approach that ITT Tech students receive because we need people we can count on right from the start.
Make a choice that can make a difference. Call now to find out about the new Opportunity Scholarship from ITT Tech. Learn more now. Call 800-453-0319. That's 800-453-0319. 800-453-0319.
If you're under the age of 85, please watch this very important message about final expense insurance. While it's never easy to talk about planning for one's funeral, it is very important to do so for many reasons. If you don't have life insurance, a final expense insurance plan pays cash to your family for final and all other expenses. If you're unable to purchase life insurance due to a pre-existing or current medical condition, call us right now for information and a free consultation. Perhaps you can't afford life insurance because of your age or because you're a smoker. Call us now and we'll guarantee you coverage. There are no tests to take and it's very affordable. Rates will never increase, the policy cannot be canceled, and there are no restrictions on how your beneficiaries can use the money. Don't delay. Call right now.
Call 1-800-842-1474, 1-800-842-1474, 1-800-842-1474, 1-800-842-1474. I was having trouble getting out of bed in the morning because my back hurt so bad.
The Sleep Number bed conforms to you. Wake up in the morning with no back pain.
Do you toss and turn, wake up with back pain? If so, call us now. You'll learn how the Sleep Number bed helps relieve back pain by allowing you to adjust the firmness and support to conform to your body for a more proper spinal alignment. Just look at this research. 93% of participants experienced back pain relief. Plus, it's a great value because it costs about the same as an innerspring, yet lasts twice as long. So if you want to sleep better or find relief for your bad back, call now.
Call 1-800-976-7120 for your free information kit with brochure, price list, and models. Call now and we'll include a free $50 savings card. Call 1-800-976-7120 now for your free information and this free $50 savings card. Call now.
Hello, welcome to this Newsmax Now update. I'm John Bachman. Sugary beverage lovers are going to be happy about this one. Today, New York's Court of Appeals ruled the ban on large sugary drinks is, in fact, illegal. Former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg pushed for the ban on the sugary drinks larger than 16 ounces as a way to fight back against obesity and type 2 diabetes. Sugary drinks are linked to 180,000 deaths a year worldwide. Now, dozens of concert goers have been suffering from drug and alcohol problems, according to authorities there. Medical problems happened during a packed concert of the electric dance DJ Avicii. There were no fatalities. The concert goers mostly ranged in age from 16 to 25. Another reminder for kids to stay off those drugs and don't drink. Now, it's a huge day, of course, for the U.S. soccer team right now. They're about 31 minutes into their match with Germany. Still no score in the game. The U.S. needs a tie or a win in order to advance to the round of 16. I think they can still lose, but they can't lose by that much. We'll see how that goes. Today's game pits U.S. coach Jurgen Klinsmann against his old team, which he coached in the 2006 World Cup, also the country of his origin. In addition to the U.S. coach, there are several American players who play in Germany, making their living there, so this could be a big statement game for them. We'll keep our eyes on the score. Still 0-0, as they say in soccer, in the 31st minute. Ed, over to you.
His rise to the most powerful position in America was unlike any other. A sitting vice president nailed on criminal charges and forced to resign, and then a president himself caught breaking the law, left of his own accord. But Gerald Ford made the most of his time in office and well beyond. The focus of this American moment.
I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow.
It was a stirring moment. Never before had a president resigned and another man risen to the nation's highest office. On August 9, 1974, Gerald R. Ford was sworn in as the country's 38th president. It was a time in the nation rocked by scandal. The same day, August 9, 1974, the House Judiciary Committee passed articles of impeachment against then-President Richard M. Nixon. That same day, Richard Nixon resigned, and Vice President Ford was hastily sworn in as Commander-in-Chief by Chief Justice Warren Burger. Soon after taking office, Gerald Ford ended the Watergate prosecution by granting Richard Nixon a full and unconditional pardon to the fallen president with this decree.
My fellow Americans, our long national nightmare is over.
On October 17, 1974, President Ford agreed to appear before Congress to defend his historic decision.
I was absolutely convinced then, as I am now, that if we had had this series, an indictment, a trial, a conviction, and anything else that transpired after that, that the attention of the President, the Congress, and the American people would have been diverted from the problems that we have to solve.
Historians have lauded President Ford's political courage in granting the pardon, but the move was widely believed to have cost him the presidency in 1976, when he was defeated by former Georgia Governor Jimmy Carter. For Newsmax TV, I'm Bill Curtis, and this is an American moment.
American moments are being made right now when it comes to the Supreme Court. Some of their decisions out of Washington, D.C. It leads the Newsmax website right now, the mothership at Newsmax.com. Let us go ahead and talk a little bit more about that. Managing editor Tim Colley joins us today. His check on the website. Tim, welcome in, and here we go. Supreme Court rebukes Obama on recess appointment power. This has a lot of people inside the Beltway buzzing this afternoon.
Yeah, this is a big blow to executive power. What the court essentially said is that when the Senate is in session, even if it's in a so-called pro forma session, when it's really not doing anything, the president can't make recess appointments. It actually has to be recess. So that means, of course, that the party that controls the Senate can simply stay in session all the time if they want to, tie the hands of the executive.
And it's worth pointing out, too, that in the story on the website, it points out that this was a 9-0 vote. And this now means that President Obama had 3 appointments to the U.S. National Labor Relations Board in 2012. Those are now unlawful and basically illegal. This will give a tremendous amount of attention to those who are saying that the president runs unchecked and basically does things of his own accord without thought of legalese.
Yes, that's true, but what goes around comes around. If we have, after 2016, a Republican executive and, say, a Democratic Senate, we're going to have the same issue. So depending on where you stand on executive power, this is a huge case.
Also coming up right now on the Newsmax website, top of the news, Obama pullout hurt U.S. spying in Iraq and the region. Tim, we haven't been talking much about this, but you would imagine that with what has happened in Iraq, our spy capabilities have been severely diminished.
Yeah, spying is just like military operations. You need boots on the ground. And when, the CIA and the NSA had pulled out their people from Baghdad, the people who do the nitty-gritty of spycraft, which is meeting sources, gathering information, hearing what's going on in the streets of, the Sunni Triangle and that, those people left, and they didn't maintain their sources, and that's simply what's going on. They blew a lot of sources.
One other thing I want to bring up real quick, get about a 15-second comment from you. A GAO report, U.S. compounds still endangered 2 years after Benghazi. Again, that will not shock a lot of people, but some will say, why have we not done better in the 2 years since?
Yeah, Senator Rand Paul's been very eloquent on this. He said that's the real issue of Benghazi, why these facilities aren't protected, why they still aren't being protected. That's the issue, and it seems nothing has been done since the attack.
2 years after 4 Americans killed in the tragedy of Benghazi, and still we are not protecting our own. Tim Colley, the managing editor, Newsmax.com. It's always a pleasure, my friend. We'll talk to you again. Have a great day.
Okay. Thanks, Ed.
All right. Check it out at Newsmax.com. That and a whole lot more. Coming up a little bit later on, the hope that one millennial has for defeating the Obama agenda. And the agenda, she says, is against her generation. We'll get that and a whole lot more right here on Midpoint, where every single day we question everything.
Meet Jim. Like many of us, Jim enjoys a busy life. Between work, family, and friends, his days zip along. And Jim has the energy to tackle almost anything. But lately, Jim's get up and go has literally taken on a new meaning. Jim's always put focus on a full night's sleep, but it seems like these days, he's up and down to go to the bathroom so many times he can barely wake up in the morning. Prostate concerns have him sad, tired, and worried. Activities that were once enjoyable now seem like a chore for Jim. His golf game is at the mercy of his bathroom schedule. Family outings are planned around it too. Jim even has difficulty going to the bathroom. He's tried so many prostate remedies he can't keep them straight, and nothing ever seems to help. Then Jim found out about Prostate Revive, the all-natural dietary supplement specifically formulated for men, targeted towards improving and sustaining normal prostate function. Prostate Revive includes 15 super ingredients never combined before, including saw palmetto extract, beta-cytosterol, pomegranate fruit extract, selenium, and other high-quality nutrients. These targeted and all-natural ingredients promote healthy urinary flow and optimal prostate health. And the best part is, Prostate Revive was developed by a renowned medical doctor. Dr. David Brownstein personally formulated Prostate Revive with one goal in mind, to promote a healthy prostate gland. Thanks to Prostate Revive, Jim's got his life back. He gets a full night's sleep every night, and his friends and his wife can't believe he's the same guy. He has his old energy back, and no one has to wait for him. He doesn't even think about his prostate concerns anymore. Visit MedicSelect.com to take back your nights and improve your quality of life with Prostate Revive.
Learn about our risk-free trial offer at prostaterevive.com/Jim.
My name is Ed Berliner. I'm a host and a news anchor here at Newsmax. This country is desperate for a new voice to speak to that new generation that wants to know it all. Don't give me just half the story. Don't give me a piece of it. Let me get it all. Every single day, when people come to Newsmax, they're going to get an entire story. A new voice, a new generation. Newsmax TV.
There's a great dissatisfaction here in Iraq with the current government. And I ran into a universal sense of a commitment, a desire by Iraqis to make up for the mistakes that have been made in the past. Now, what that means in terms of personalities or individuals who might fill one role or another, I can't tell you. That's up to Iraqis.
Iraq needs that new government. Boy, I'll tell you, that's something we've been talking about for weeks. Military veterans, when their tour is over in Iraq or wherever else, finding a good, well-paying job. Add to that the more pressing issue of hoping they receive the medical care they have earned. Let us welcome into Midpoint a soldier who can speak to both. He was active duty Marines in the early 2000s, a Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medal winner for his work with wounded warriors, and along with his four-legged partner Rex, won a Navy Achievement Medal for their work in Operation Iraqi Freedom. It is a pleasure to bring in Mike Dowling into Midpoint today. Mike, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Mike, we're going to talk about a little bit about the VA and what is happening, and I want to get your opinion on Iraq as well, because everything that's happening there, seeing as you had served in that theater before. But this is interesting because I know that you've got your own page on IMDb, which is the Internet Movie Database. You've done some commercials. But it's interesting because there's so much military going on in Hollywood right now, so many different movies, commercials, films, television, that actually if you're a vet, you can go over and at least get a job telling people what the reality is like, correct?
Well, I don't know if it's that simple. But
it never is that simple in Hollywood, Mike. We know that.
Yeah, but they are. I think it is safe to say that Hollywood is becoming more and more veteran-friendly right now. And what I mean by that is there's lots of studios, agencies, and production companies that are actively seeking to train and hire veterans to be part of their productions and help make their productions more realistic. That have military themes to them. Because as we all know, Hollywood doesn't get it right when it comes to the military films and the military genre. It's very entertaining and it draws a good audience, but there's a lot of inaccurate depictions about the veteran culture and military experience.
Let's talk about that. Wait a minute there. The things that they get wrong about the veteran culture and that military experience. What is it? The one or two things that really strike you that they always get wrong? Well,
when you're in combat, there's a lot of downtime. There's a lot of boring, but great bonding moments between between the soldiers and the Marines and all the combat troops. Hollywood likes to focus on the 0.5%, the 1% of the time where there's real action going on and very specific moments, and that's okay because when movies are only an hour and a half long, so you can only share so much within that time frame. But also, the lingo and just the uniforms, there's a lot of minor things, but there's some bigger ones. For example, just the whole real experience of what it's like. But, when you look at Hollywood, they're there to entertain. And really, it's the documentaries that tell the stories, in my opinion, that are a lot more realistic than the actual movies are.
Let us talk realism here for a moment. As someone who was involved in Operation Iraqi Freedom, you've seen the news, you watch with the rest of us what's happening in Iraq right now, the complete degradation of what supposedly was built there and the country now under siege one more time. You look and see a lot of towns that you might have been in and you might know that are now in the hands of the enemy. How does that hit you when you see that?
It's incredibly unfortunate and discouraging. But, I look at my service as being, I followed my orders. I did what I was told to do, and I felt it was an honorable thing of what we were doing. And we were all out there during a time that was, it was very tough on everyone. And we did the best that we could, and we felt like we left it in a good place. I really feel that right now it's really up to the Iraqis. I don't know how much more the U.S. or anybody, for that matter, can do. I think it's up to the Iraqis to take a stand now. We trained them. We left them with, all the tools that they needed, and I just really feel like it's up to them.
Mike, was your service wasted?
Not at all. I was out there to serve my brothers and sisters out there to the best of my ability, and I felt that I could do that.
Even though much of the land that you had protected and defended is now gone?
It's really tough. I try not to dwell on that too much. I really, as a service member, I'm there for my fellow service members, and that's really what I want to think about and what I dwell on. And now that we did our time and that we're home, I just want to move on with my life and be successful, and I wish the same for my fellow vets.
Mike, have you had much experience with the Veterans Administration when you returned, and certainly in the subsequent years?
I have. I actually am an active patient of the VA. My experience has been pretty good, actually. I certainly have seen other veterans that have not had a good experience, but I would encourage them to keep trying. By the way, as an actor, it's been great to be on camera, but behind the scenes, I do a lot of production work, and I've been proud to say that I've been part of the production teams for the Veterans Affairs Make the Connection and Veterans Crisis Line campaigns, and those encourage veterans to reach out and get mental health. You can see their videos on their websites. But I would say the VA has a lot to offer. You have to be very, very patient. And I would encourage veterans to have that patience when they're dealing with them.
You talked about some of the mental health, and this certainly was something, this shocked me when I saw this story that came out this week. A VA mental health care facility in Massachusetts, a veteran admitted there waited 8 years for his first comprehensive psychiatric evaluation by the staff. As a veteran and telling your fellow veterans to have patience, isn't that an awfully difficult thing to say to them when, even if they have patience, you got a guy waiting 8 years?
Yeah, that's certainly a long time to be patient. I feel that it just, every time I see those headlines, it just hits me right in the gut, because I'm so, I want to be able to take care of them personally. I want to reach out to them and call them and say, hey, it's okay. If you can't get help at the VA, you can call your fellow vet. Give me a call. Give someone else a call. Maybe we can try and help you out. A lot of veterans, we got to remember there's a lot of services out there in other than the VA that they can reach out to. There's a lot of nonprofit organizations and a lot of alternative places that they can go to for free that they can reach out to as well. So yeah, it's really shocking and discouraging when you see those headlines. I just wish that they can also reach out to the veteran community who can point them in the right direction of alternative places that they can go to.
Let us hope that maybe just the words that you have said will tell people and tell your fellow veterans out there to simply try to have that patience and try to hang in there, because they certainly, and you as well, all of you deserve our respect, our thanks, and you deserve that kind of attention from us and that kind of help. Mike, thanks so much for joining us. Let's please do it again sometime, and good luck on your next casting call.
I appreciate that. Thanks so much.
All right, Mike, take care. Mike Dowling joining us here on Midpoint. Patience. Wow, that's a tough thing to say. I hope that people can use that and make it work for them. All right, coming up next hour, the latest Iraqi war and how it will in no uncertain terms affect your wallet. Didn't you know you'd hear this sooner or later? Well, we're starting to hear it again now. Energy dependence comes up as one of the subjects. That and a whole lot more as we continue here on Midpoint, where every day we question everything.
Imagine being able to clear your breakouts fast with a revolutionary new acne treatment that's actually good for your skin. Announcing all-new Proactiv Plus, the combination of acne medicine plus ultra-perfecting skincare. Television star Kristen Ritter calls it a miracle.
I love the new Proactiv Plus. It's fighting all my breakouts, and my skin is like porcelain.
The results are astonishing. Your skin is not only clear, but smooth and sexy. It's our smartest, fastest, most effective solution ever. And now, new skincare is in every step to balance acne-prone skin with needed hydration and more.
I have to tell you this is different. Just look at my before and after pictures. That doesn't lie.
So grab your phone and dial the number on your screen now, because today, shipping is free. And get 3 free gifts, a $96 value for just $29.95. Call now.
You will love your skin.
Meet John and Nancy. Like many people, John and Nancy have spent their whole lives working hard, saving their money and investing wisely, knowing that it would pay off in the end. But the reality is, today's world is not the same as it was. John and Nancy stocks have taken them on a serious roller coaster ride, and it's all but destroyed their retirement funds. Their house is not even close to being worth what they paid, and to boot, their middle-class paychecks no longer cover their costs. All that hard work and smart investing has gotten them nowhere. In fact, they are no longer thinking about when they will retire, they're wondering if they'll retire. Then one day, John and Nancy heard about a man named Tom Hutchison, a veteran of Wall Street for over 2 decades. Tom noticed that the wealthy invested differently than normal people, and their methods seemed to be a secret they didn't want to share. So Tom left his job, compiled the strategies, and published them in the controversial book, Powerful Secrets to Achieve Superior Returns. John and Nancy immediately picked up a copy, began investing, and never looked back. Thanks to Powerful Secrets, John and Nancy now have investments that pay up to 20% a year. They learned about unique tax-advantaged investments, and their favorite chapter revealed a strategy that anyone can use to turn $50,000 into $1 million. Now, John and Nancy have control of their financial future in this new reality, and they have peace of mind about their investments that they never had before. Best of all, they are back on track to a secure retirement. To get your free copy of the book, Powerful Secrets to Achieve Superior Returns, simply visit www.myfinancialage.org.
We're the stronger than we look type. The braver than you think type. The type that's sure the time will come when we put Type 1 behind us. We're the progress is inevitable type. The rise to every challenge type. The type that knows bit by bit the future is certain to get better. We're the plan for a cure type. The improve life along the way type. The type that will stop at nothing. Absolutely nothing. Until Type 1 becomes Type None.
I went without seeing this flag for 5.5 years. And when I saw it on the tail section of that Star Lifter, I was overwhelmed, and it means everything to me. When I see this flag, it reminds me of how fortunate I am to be an American. I could have been born in Rwanda, you know. So could you. We all could have been. But I had the good fortune to be born an American. And it's the most important thing in my life.
It is, at its inception, just a piece of cloth. Nylon, polyester, cotton, rayon, perhaps a few metal grommets in the right places. Hand sewn by some, but mostly machine sewn these days. There are places where workers churn them out by the hundreds, maybe even thousands a day. And while it's not to their detriment, most of the people who manufacture American flags likely don't think too much about each and every one that goes out the door, bagged and packaged for delivery to who knows where and often who knows what for. It's used to drape the shoulders of those attending sporting events around the world, flown on poles at homes and businesses in small towns and major cities, and sometimes in the hands of a certain type of person is burned in anger at what it stands for. It may seem like just a piece of cloth, but to many it is so much more. What it represents and what it means to the heart and very soul of those who wore a version over their heart on a uniform. Don't ever try to tell them it is just a piece of cloth.
Stars and stripes are at the center of controversy, at least at Larry Murphy's home.
I want it to go away. And it's such a minor little thing that they just keep coming after me.
They is Murfrees Homeowners Association. He's lived in the Sweetwater community for years and been at odds with the HOA for more than 2, all over this flag. The veteran decided to put one in his flower pot and in result has been fined.
They just sent me a letter that I owe them around $8,000, and they put a foreclosure lien on my house.
We wanted to know how that's possible, so we took our questions to our legal and safety expert, Dale Carson.
There's an actual Florida statute that says he can display this flag.
Federal law from 2005 also backs that up.
Hi, Aaron. This is Erica Bennett with Action News.
I reached out to the law office who represents the HOA and got attorney Michelle Haynes. She tells me if payment is not made within 30 days, the law office can move forward with a foreclosure on Murfree's home. Last year, after a similar fight, he filed a lawsuit and settled out of court, but the HOA flag display rules have been rewritten since then. Murfree says he won't stop until he can freely fly his patriotic right.
When I first moved here, I loved it. It was wonderful. But it's just gotten where they nitpick more and more. It's a lot of friends and neighbors moving out. I don't want to move.
Larry Murfree is 73 years of age. He served 6 years in the U.S. Air Force starting in 1964, which means he lived through a difficult time as a member of the American Armed Services. At the Tides development near Jacksonville, Florida, Murfree fights what seems to be a losing battle against the massive Del Webb Master Homeowners Association, all over what at the beginning was just a piece of cloth. Of course, it is no longer just a piece of woven fiber. It is worth fighting for. The association has the rules on their side. Court documents show property owners can display a flag, but for some mysterious reason, not in a flower pot, only in a flag bracket, their rules state, and only on the garage door. Larry Murfree served his country protecting the right to have such rules, and for the society that makes such rules to supposedly keep a certain amount of order. If it weren't for men and women like him, there might not be such hard-cut rules. Maybe I wouldn't be sitting here today and you wouldn't be able to watch me, saying that sometimes exceptions should be made. Because think about it. Sometimes, to some people, it is not just a piece of cloth. That is telling it like it is. We want to hear from you. Tell us on social media what you think about this and so many of the other issues that we talk about here. If you want to tweet us, it's Midpoint TV, #Midpoint. At Facebook, it's facebook.com/Midpoint TV. And at email, it is at Newsmax TV. Stay with us because every day, right here on Midpoint, we question everything.
This is a national healthcare alert from the Health Hotline. If you, a family member, or a loved one suffers from knee pain, and we've got great news. You could qualify for a pain-relieving knee brace at little or no cost to you. Get free little or no cost to you. Get free delivery, and all the paperwork is handled by our accredited suppliers at no charge to pain. Don't wait. You may qualify to immediately receive a pain-relieving brace at little or no cost. Friendly agents are standing by 24/7 to help you. Call the Health Hotline right now for details toll-free. Our friendly representatives are standing by now to take your call. We also have other pain-relieving braces available for shoulder, ankle, and your back. You may be eligible to receive these items and more at little or no cost to you as well. Call right now for details toll-free.
Operators are standing by. Call 855-866-1005. That's 855-866-1005. Again, 855-866-1005. That's 855-866-1005.
Attention seniors and baby boomers. A new website has been created just for you. MyBenefits811.com. At MyBenefits811.com, we reveal a weird trick that could help you add $152,000 to your Social Security payouts. For example, did you know how you file for Social Security can dramatically change the amount of money you collect? One simple step could add up to $1,000 to your monthly payouts. And other strategies we found reveal 33 ways for big savings on your health care. At MyBenefits811.com, you will also discover how you could save up to 50% on your groceries, along with 49 other ways to save as much as $50,000 starting today. Newsmax says MyBenefits811.com is a critical resource for anyone over the age of 50. So go to MyBenefits811.com now to find out how you could add extra money to your Social Security checks. That's MyBenefits811.com. MyBenefits811.com.
We are always hearing about how Republicans are supposedly involved in various wars against certain people, but there is, in the minds of a growing number of Americans, a war being waged by the Obama administration against an entire generation. One woman is determined to take the fight up another notch or two. Add another worry about the repercussions of the latest Iraq disaster to your daily portfolio, and yes, it does indeed revolve around oil and energy dependence. And what happened in New York this week has interesting connotations for the rest of the country, the midterms, and a whole lot more. Prepare to consider all this and more as we question everything for Thursday, June 26th, 2014. Our daily trip to that magical place known as Outland will reveal the shocking and stunningly obvious connection between the Obama administration, the doings in Iraq, and a motion picture that featured a villain with various body piercings. Yes, we're serious. And so apparently is somebody else. No villains here. We get the latest Newsmax now from John Bachman.
Well, a lot of news coming out of the Supreme Court this week. Big decisions coming today. The Supreme Court pushing back against President Obama and those recess appointments, also striking down a Massachusetts law which requires a 35 square foot radius to protect abortion clinics, striking down that law as well. But also landmark decisions coming down yesterday. The justices unanimously ruling that police cannot search one's cell phone without at first obtaining a search warrant. Chief Justice John Roberts said those cell phones hold the privacies of many, or hold privacy for many of Americans, and declared that police must obtain the proper paperwork, have it signed off by a judge in order to look through your cell phone. Some law enforcement officials say this decision will make it much harder on them to do their job, but civil libertarians see this as a huge win for privacy rights.
This is a landmark decision about bringing privacy into the 21st century.
Well, Georgetown University law professor who you saw right there, David Cole, says this is reality, that everything is changing right now, and of course everyone creates a digital trace with their phones. The decision requiring police to obtain search warrants in order to look at people's cell phones is a sign that courts are concerned about the government's ability to peer into Americans' digital lives. Another big ruling yesterday that's having a big impact today, the internet TV streaming service Aereo told to stop its business by the highest court. The 6-3 decision by the justices determined that Aereo is infringing on federal copyright law. Aereo uses antennas to capture TV signals and then retransmit them to their subscribers over the web, all without paying a fee to broadcasters.
The court today agreed with the broadcasters that what Aereo is doing looks a lot like what a cable system does.
Now, if Aereo wants to stay in business, it'll have to pay those copyright fees to broadcasters. This has caused some of the stock prices of broadcasters like CBS to go through the roof. Aereo also currently charges subscribers $8 a month for basic service and offers other packages for people who want access to DVR storage. And among the organizations who pushed for this decision was the National Football League and Major League Baseball. Had the courts sided with the internet startup Aereo, sports leagues say they would have moved to all content onto paid channels. We're back with more news in 30 minutes.
So let me be clear. So to the Iraqi people, let me be clear about America's intentions. Let me be clear. The United States government has no interest in running GM. So let me be clear. But let me be clear. Let me be clear. I'm committed to making these cuts in a way that protects our senior citizens. And let me be clear. NATO should be seeking collaboration with Russia, not confrontation. But let us be clear. Al-Qaeda killed nearly 3,000 people on that day. So let me be clear. If you like your doctor or healthcare provider, you can keep them.
Various political groups attacking various members of society on various issues. Honestly, all these accusations can overwhelm anybody because all too often there's very little, if any, evidence of any real war, as we always hear. But in this case, our next guest says there is plenty of evidence in one issue that the current administration is taking aim at an entire generation and something needs to be done about it right now. She is a political commentator, a weekly columnist at townhall.com, and now author of the book, Let Me Be Clear, Barack Obama's War on Millennials and One Woman's Case for Hope. It is a pleasure to welcome Katy Keefer into Midpoint. Katy, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Here we go now. There's always a war. We always hear there's a Republican war on women. There's a war on this person, a war on this group. All right, first of all, you are going to have to make some sense of this here, because I guarantee you there's people out there going, what war on millennials? Aren't they doing well? Aren't they doing just fine coming out of college?
When you look out there, you see that over 15% of millennials are unemployed and over a third are living at home with their parents. This is a 40-year high. We have 2.3 million missing households in our country right now. If our real estate market were healthy, we could knock 1.5 percentage points off of the unemployment rate. So we do have a crisis when we have law school students who are passing the bar exam only to find jobs working as baristas. So I addressed this crisis in my book, which I titled Let Me Be Clear, to turn Barack Obama's famous catchphrase against him. Now it's my generation's turn to be clear with our president, and we're demanding accountability, but also I offer solutions. These are practical solutions that all generations can take so that we can take back our American dreams. For example, I interviewed close to 300 doctors and surgeons to get their free market solutions to offering affordable and high quality health care for all Americans, and those solutions are offered in this book, and that's just one example of the hope that you will find for the future so we can take back our dreams. This is a very important message to get out to millennials and all ages before the midterms.
Katie, were you duped the first time out? And I say you, I'm speaking of millennials here. The opinion that millennials were duped the first time voting for Barack Obama and now feel that they were duped a second time. And again, people are going to ask, how could you be duped twice then? What happened?
That's a good question. And the first time around, yes, certainly they were. The second time around, leading into the 2012 elections, polls showed that millennials were losing trust in Barack Obama. They were not going to come out to vote for him in droves. And that's when Barack Obama really picked up or ramped up the lies. He told them that if you vote for me, you will graduate without any student loan debt. He told them that you will have free health care. Your health insurance premiums will go down. We in fact found out that that was not the case. For example, I personally received a bump in my premium. Many others did as well. So he ramped up the lies. He played to the fact that they didn't have jobs, that they were drowning in debt. And at the same time, he utilized his IRS to crack down on the Tea Party, so they didn't have an alternative voice out there. All they could hear was his voice, his message. And in that sense, considering the fact also that polls showed their parents were a bit confused about what was going on with regard to Obamacare, they were duped in a sense again in the second round. So what this book does is it lays out the truth in the voice of a millennial. It's coming to them as a best friend or as a sister. This is a very unique way to reach young people right now, and we need to get it out. I don't think that the Republican Party or the Independent Party is getting this message out, but so I'm throwing myself out there. I'm being that voice for all of these groups that want to reach out to millennials.
Well, let's talk about those groups here, because there are, and I've talked to a number of people in the millennial generation, if you will, and they say, look, the reason we voted for Barack Obama the second time around is the Republicans, the Independents, the Libertarians, nobody came up with anybody else nearly decent for us to vote for. So we just did it because, okay, 4 more years, we know we're throwing away our vote. They say that you didn't give us anybody else. So then what is the solution here to finding somebody else that the millennials will say, okay, that's the person who's there for me?
I'm glad you raised that point, because that is another factor. The Republican Party needs to do a better job of running great candidates. Part of the problem was that the millennials were not in love with McCain or Romney, and we can do a better job of running strong candidates while at the same time remaining true to our core beliefs. And I give specific advice on just how to do that in my book, titled Let Me Be Clear. The last chapter is called Roarin' Muscle Cars, and it's all about how we can take back our freedom, how the Republican Party in particular can reach out to these millennials, and part of it is actually having a millennial speak to millennials to tell you the truth, because that's how it's going to resonate the most powerfully, I believe, with them. So that's why I spent 2 years researching this book and putting it out there in their own voice, so that
so what you're saying then is, from the
powerfully.
millennial standpoint, is you're saying your message to the Republicans and others would be stop giving us old guys?
No, it has to be a combination of that wisdom. There's a lot of wisdom that comes with years, and also a young person like myself affirming that and putting it in their own language, in other words.
Okay, let's put some things into language here now and a few issues here, and let's see where the millennials are on this for whom you speak here. Gay marriage, first of all. What is the position of the millennials here? And try to keep this brief, if you will, a few things that we have to go through here. What is it that the millennial generation wants to see with regard to gay marriage?
Most millennials are very open to that idea, and what I run through that specifically in my book, and how Barack Obama took the wrong approach to that. We already have the Constitution of the United States is silent on marriage and family law, and that's for a reason, because the 10th Amendment allows for individuals and states to determine those issues, and that. So what I found in my research is that millennials tend to be very socially libertarian, and so they're going to support Republican and conservative messages that speak to the First and 10th Amendment with regard to gay marriage.
Okay, next up is unemployment. From your book, from your research then, what's the solution?
Well, we should have the lowest corporate income tax rate in the world, not the highest. That's a first step, and that comes straight from Steve Jobs, actually, who is a huge role model for our youths on both the left and the right. I weave him through the book quite a bit, actually, knowing that millennials highly look up to him and to push entrepreneurship. 70% of millennials say that they want to become entrepreneurs. And so if we can make it actually possible by lowering some of these regulations, cutting taxes, getting rid of the red tape, so that you can go out into your garage and become the next Steve Jobs, we're going to see so much growth you won't believe it, because if 70% of millennials want to work for themselves and start an innovative company, and with the technology we have today they can do it, let's make that happen with public policy.
Okay, very contentious issue, gun control here. There are a number of millennial groups and people in that age group that I've spoken to that said we need more gun laws. They're always screaming for it. However, you in your book say, wait a minute, with everything that's happened here, with what's happened with campus and community shootings, you're saying fewer gun laws, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed. I grew up in a gun family. I know firsthand from growing up around responsible gun owners that having guns in the home, growing up in a culture of guns, does not turn you into a criminal. And what we just saw out in California, actually in the very tragic case of Elliot Rodger, was that California has the strictest gun control laws in the entire country, and yet that did not stop this young man whose parents unwittingly aided him in this issue by letting him live alone, by providing him with a BMW that he used to commit his crime, and ignoring his mental illness. Mental illness is a huge theme that runs throughout all of these crimes, and what I offer in my book is a solution that involves more guns and more love. We need a combination of those two, and then we're going to end, or at least we're going to see a tapering down of this mass violence.
All right then, 20 seconds, last shot here. What is your big solution that you put forward in the book? What is the message you send to millennials right now if they want to change things and make it better?
Look to yourself first, believe in yourself more so than politicians, and get involved, take action. I give you specific solutions in my book, Let Me Be Clear, for how you can do that, but don't give up, pursue your American dream, and look to yourself first before the government.
I'm going to take it then that you're going to be very cautious about whom you vote for in the next election, correct?
I'm going to vote for the free market guy or gal.
All right, as long as we have that down now, there's at least a message for those people who are considering running, of course. The book, once again, is Let Me Be Clear, Barack Obama's War on Millennials and One Woman's Case for Hope. Katie, thank you so much for joining us today. Good luck with the book.
Thank you for the opportunity to share this message.
It's a pleasure. Don't kid yourself, people. The millennials are a very powerful group out there. It is that generation right now that is saying, where are our jobs and where is our opportunity? And they are saying, quite frankly, that they've had that opportunity taken away from them. All right, coming up, why we should be concerned and considering who will take the place of John Boehner. Plus, there's some news about Wendy Davis you need to hear. You also can tell us what you think. We hear you on social media, because here on Midpoint, we question everything.
If you are age 85 or younger,
call 800-981-7668.
to learn more about the Senior Care Plan from Senior Life Insurance Company. The average funeral now costs over $7,500, but the most government benefits will pay your family is only $255, leaving your loved ones to pay your debt. The Senior Care Plan will pay up to $30,000 for funeral and other final expenses. There is no medical exam, and you'll have lifetime coverage. Your rates will never increase, your benefits will never decrease, and your plan cannot be canceled by Senior Life. To receive free information about the Senior Care Plan and its benefits,
call 800-981-7668.
Also receive information about a free prescription discount card by calling now. You have no obligation. Operators are standing by. Call now.
Are you feeling tired, run down, low on energy? Well, you could be just like millions of Americans whose thyroid gland isn't functioning the way it's supposed to. Well, now there's hope to change all of that. Introducing Actilin. Actilin is a premium nutritional supplement designed to support optimal thyroid function. Actilin has 17 powerful ingredients that support adrenal health, thyroid function, energy, and your immune system. Actilin was formulated by the renowned holistic practitioner, Dr. David Brownstein. And now, for a limited time, you can get a free bottle of Actilin with our special offer. You pay only for shipping and handling. Act right now and get Dr. Brownstein's free special report, A Doctor's Guide to a Healthy Thyroid. Get Actilin and the special report. Sign up today at getactilin.com. That's getactilin.com. Or call us at the number below.
The odds of becoming a successful NASCAR driver, 1 in 125 billion. The odds of a child being diagnosed with autism, 1 in 68. I'm Jamie McMurray. Learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs.
This was your victory. This is your congressman, and you can rest assured all I will be doing is thinking about you and bringing these resources home.
Oh boy. So to the naked eye, it was just another guy getting reelected in New York. No big deal. Save for the fact it's a 23rd term for Charlie Rangel. It's another term for a politician considered by some to be one of the more ethically challenged individuals in American government, and proves you can indeed fool a lot of the people plenty of the time. And they're doing that in Texas, too, it would seem these days, as far as some are concerned. Let's dig in, starting there. More on plenty of news and notes. Welcome into Midpoint, the editor at Hot Air, and a military veteran and a soccer fan. Brian Preston joins the fray here at Midpoint. Brian, thanks a lot for joining us.
Hey, Ed, thanks for having me on.
Let's talk. Charlie Rangel is one thing that we need to talk about because that's not getting a whole lot of attention here, and there's a lot of reasons here. But Wendy Davis, certainly, and you've been following this as well on a lot of your articles here on PJ Media about what is going on in Texas, because it is, to those people who are anti-Wendy Davis, they look up and go, really? It's no big deal if they fall on her side. All right, give us some of the truth here.
Well, a year ago, Wendy Davis rose to fame as a state senator in Texas by filibustering an abortion bill. This abortion bill does a couple of things. It restricts abortion past 20 weeks, and it upgrades standards in clinics in the state. It's a popular bill. Parts of it have 62% support. The whole bill has majority support. And it was sponsored by women in the Texas legislature. But nevertheless, Wendy Davis rose up as the so-called voice of women or champion of women. And she celebrated the anniversary of this filibuster yesterday with a party for abortion around the state. There were house parties, there was a party in Austin, and there was this prayer that led off the rally, the party, the celebration. That it's kind of disgusting, to be honest with you. In it, the prayer leader actually calls their event a celebration. So they're calling it an abortion party and ask for God to deliver the state to the Democratic Party on their behalf.
All right, now let me go ahead and let people in a little bit here. We have a soundbite of Wendy Davis here, and this was part of her filibuster here against the Texas abortion laws. Let's go ahead and hear from Wendy. Oh, we don't have it. Okay, hang on. See, we don't have it, so we'll go ahead and say that we already talked about it. But you're also bringing up something else here with regard to Wendy Davis. There's the flip-flop on border security. There's a number of things here, and I think you bring up a very good point. If she is having trouble getting Texans to promote her, then what is her future? I'm going to take issue with that, because some people will say she's not getting any problem whatsoever. There are plenty of Texans who are promoting her right now, to which you would answer.
Well, to which I would just point to the polls. She's behind in the polls by about a dozen points right now, and that's before most Texans have really focused on this race. And it's as she goes into her convention, her state party convention. Now, a lot of people are going to say that's the new kickoff of her race, and she's really going to get serious after that, but that won't fly. She's been campaigning around the state for a year, and she hasn't gained any traction. She's actually tried to describe herself as pro-life at one point when she was talking to a lot of Catholic folks down in the Rio Grande Valley. She's done this flip-flop on border security, and look, this is a huge issue in the state of Texas. It's a huge issue among Hispanics down in the Rio Grande Valley, but not in the way that most Democrats think it is. It's a huge issue because they realize down there that their communities are threatened by this insecure border. Now we have this case of swine flu being detected at Lackland Air Force Base, having been brought in by one of these illegal alien children who's come in, and Wendy Davis is showing no leadership. She was slamming Greg Abbott a few weeks ago on border security. Now she's calling for a state of emergency and a special session and all this. And the bottom line here is that Texans I think they're getting to know Wendy Davis, and they're figuring out that they can't really trust her.
All right, now let's talk about trust here a little bit, if you will. Let us hear from a gentleman named Charles Rangel. Everybody knows him. We talked about him. 23rd time now, 23rd term that he is going to serve the people of his district in New York City. Mr. Rangel is ethically challenged. That is fair to say, because certainly that has been proven, of course. But in this, I found it interesting. This is one of those things that always catches people. He's suggesting here that most Republicans salute the Confederate flag. And, of course, racism is abundant in the Republican Party. This, according to Charlie Rangel. Listen up.
Issue is that in this country, everybody should have access to voting. And I hope they vote for me. But whether they can see their way clear or not, they should come out on June the 24th. The president needs a lot of help. He has a cancer in the Republican Party that hates him politically like no group in history has done it. Most all of them come from slave-holding states, and they salute the Confederate flag. But they have overplayed their hand, and they have killed the Republican Party.
Party is dead. Up there we go. Charlie Rangel says the Republican Party has killed itself. Would you have to wonder how, and again, I speak about so many people who have written and covered Charlie Rangel, even those people sometimes who sit on his side, wonder why people still believe much of what he says.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, Charlie Rangel here, he's talking to his core base voters. He clearly is lying about history. I mean, the fact is, if you're going to talk about the Confederate flag, you have to talk about the party that divided the country to support that flag and to create that flag, which was the Democratic Party. And you have to talk about which party supported slavery, and that's the Democratic Party. And you have to talk about why this president is meeting so much opposition. It's his policies. It's the fact that he rewrites laws on the fly. It's the way he passed Obamacare. It's the recess appointments that were just struck down today, which he did illegally. There are so many reasons. It's what's going on the border right now, and it's his foreign policy. But this is Charlie Rangel. He smears people. He smears Republicans in that soundbite. On another show, he smeared the Tea Party as being worse than Hamas. I mean, this is just what he does. He's not a reasonable figure. He's ethically challenged, as you mentioned, which, look, he was censured by the House. This is just not a guy who ought to be in office, but the power of incumbency, which has been a theme, I think, this week, held out. And he gets at least one more term. He says it's his final term. I'll believe that when I see it.
But if we're dealing with intelligent people, and certainly you can always find out exactly what Charlie Rangel stands for. You can find about the ethics issue.
Sure.
What you're talking about with Wendy Davis, you can find out. The web is right there. You can find this out. You can do your research here. if we are dealing with these kind of people, and again, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian makes no difference. But if we're dealing with these kind of people, why is it that they are continuing to get support? Why do they get reelected? And why are they still part of the problem instead of being part of the solution then?
Well, that's a great question. I wish I had an easy answer for you. I mean, some people do just vote along what are more or less tribal lines. They're Democrats, their parents have been Democrats or Republicans, and so that's how they vote. And whatever the name is on the ballot, that's how they vote. There are people who think they owe Charlie Rangel something over the years. I mean, one of the powers of incumbency is they collect bushels and bushels and bushels of favors, and then when they get in trouble, they start calling those favors in. And Rangel did that this week. Tad Cochran did that in Mississippi this week. And the power of incumbency is hard to overcome. And when you're looking at a ballot and you see a name you're familiar with and a name you're not familiar with, most people are going to vote for the name they're familiar with. I actually take a different tack. I tend to vote for the name I'm not familiar with just because I figure I'm familiar with that guy because he's been in office for a while and I want him out of there.
Careful, that might happen to a lot of people when it comes around to the midterms this time and wait until 2016. Couple of minutes we got left here. You were the communications director of the Republican Party of Texas. So Texas certainly is part of what we're discussing here this week with regard to immigration and all that is happening in the American Southwest here right now. There are those who say that, quite frankly, immigration reform is dead, won't happen, take it off the table. It's completely something you shouldn't even consider right now. As a matter of fact, Luis Gutierrez said on Politico, the prospects are completely dead. Do you agree with that?
I wish I could agree with that. I am fearful of the lame duck session after the election this November. I think there's still going to be enough squishy Republicans there who might try to push something through. It will be to their detriment and to the detriment of the party. But I'm not thinking this thing is dead yet. And I think the president is not quieted down by the polls or anything that's happening. He's emboldened as he gets less popular. And so I think I would not be surprised at all if he makes some kind of unilateral move this summer to enact as much of the bill as he can get away with.
I got less than a minute here. I'm going to put you on the spot. You used the phrase squishy Republicans. You want to go ahead and give us an idea who they are?
Well, there are a number of them. I mean, you look in the Senate, there have been several. In the House, most of the House leadership. It's going to depend on what John Boehner does, what Kevin McCarthy does, what those guys do. If they're smart, they will let it ride. If they're not, then they'll try to push something through.
Does what we've seen here at the midterms, and so we're not the midterms yet, but these last 6 elections we had earlier this week, does it tell us anything about what will happen or where that might go, where the waffling might stop or start?
Well, I mean, I think in general, the Republicans right now are poised to take over the Senate. That's not a given. It's not a slam dunk, but they're poised to do that. I think the Republicans are poised to keep the lion's share of the governor's mansions and legislatures, which would argue against Rangel's point that the Republican Party is dead. It's actually not. It dominates everywhere but Washington.
I would guess then you're not voting for Wendy Davis in Texas. I'm just going to go ahead and...
That's a pretty good guess, yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure. You know, we're always about asking the questions, making sure we get the solid answers here. I had that feeling. Hey, Brian Preston, editor-in-chief of The Grid, thanks so much for joining us. Brian, we'll do it again, my friend.
Thanks, Ed. My pleasure.
All right. Things that you have heard here today, social media. Let's get to it right now because there's some addresses that I want you to get to now. I want you to tweet me. Right on Twitter, go to Midpoint TV. That's where it is on Twitter. Make sure you get to us there. Send us an email at newsmaxtv.com. Talk about what you've seen here on Midpoint as well. And also go to Facebook. Go to that /Midpoint TV. Let us know what you think about what you're hearing here today. Because, boy, I'll tell you, here come those midterm elections. It's going to be fun. More fun to come as we question everything.
Pat Boone here with a word about bank safety. Do you think your money is safe in the bank? Don't bank on it. A generation ago, bank accounts felt secure and they paid interest. This encouraged the virtue of thrift and saving. But today, bank accounts pay virtually nothing, and they've shifted from low risk to high risk. For example, did you know your money deposited in most U.S. banks could be subject to limited withdrawal and even confiscation? Oh, yes. And that's just the first of 19 risks explained in a new white paper entitled Don't Bank on It. You still think your bank deposits are safe? You better get this vital new Don't Bank on It white paper now. Call the number on the screen or visit SwissAmerica.com, the gold standard. Learn how simple it is to become your own banker today.
Meet John and Nancy. Like many people, John and Nancy have spent their whole lives working hard, saving their money and investing wisely. knowing that it would pay off in the end. But the reality is, today's world is not the same as it was. John and Nancy's stocks have taken them on a serious roller coaster ride, and it's all but destroyed their retirement funds. Their house is not even close to being worth what they paid, and to boot, their middle-class paychecks no longer cover their costs. All that hard work and smart investing has gotten them nowhere. In fact, they are no longer thinking about when they will retire, they're wondering if they'll retire. Then one day, John and Nancy heard about a man named Tom Hutchison, a veteran of Wall Street for over 2 decades. Tom noticed that the wealthy invested differently than normal people, and their methods seemed to be a secret they didn't want to share. So Tom left his job, compiled the strategies, and published them in the controversial book, Powerful Secrets to Achieve Superior Returns. John and Nancy immediately picked up a copy, began investing, and never looked back. Thanks to Powerful Secrets, John and Nancy now have investments that pay up to 20% a year. They learned about unique tax-advantaged investments, and their favorite chapter revealed a strategy that anyone can use to turn $50,000 into $1 million. Now, John and Nancy have control of their financial future in this new reality, and they have peace of mind about their investments that they never had before. Best of all, they are back on track to a secure retirement. To get your free copy of the book, Powerful Secrets to Achieve Superior Returns, simply visit www.myfinancialage.org.
Welcome back. I'm Francesca Page, and here's your Newsmax Now update. Secretary of State John Kerry met with his counterparts from Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Jordan earlier today. The meeting comes as these nations try to find a solution to the ongoing crisis in Iraq, as well as other issues throughout the Middle East.
The move of ISIL concerns every single country here. But in addition to that, we have an ongoing crisis in Syria, where ISIL is also involved, and we have the challenge of an Iranian nuclear program.
ISIS, or ISIL as Kerry referred to them, has been destabilized the Middle East region, fighting in Iraq and Syria. And remember that Sudanese woman arrested for converting to Christianity? Well, she was freed after her story made headlines, but was rearrested when she tried to leave her country for the US. And now reports are saying Miriam Ibrahim has been freed once again. And officials in Sudan say the Christian woman was rearrested after forging travel documents. But Ibrahim's lawyer said she was released today after foreign diplomats pressurized the Sudanese government to set her free. That's your Newsmax Now update. Now back to Midpoint.
From the most dangerous and darkly entertaining dictator in the world today to perhaps the most intriguing and baffling conspiracy theory we have heard in a long time, welcome everybody once again to Outland, where the interesting people reside. We call them interesting because we are told by legal counsel that's about as far as we can go without being caught in danger of a subpoena. Let us start right out with conspiracies. Conspiracies are one of those things history abhors a vacuum. Everybody wants to see great conspiracies involved, all right? We're just that kind of a nation. This one, though, had kind of stopped us a little bit. This was on the MSNBC show Melissa Harris Perry. Now, the guest here is a gentleman named Earl Catagnas Jr., who is an Iraqi war veteran. He tried to put together a conspiracy theory here with what President Obama is doing in Iraq and the movie 300 Rise of an Empire. Okay, now I want you to keep that all in mind. The movie's right on now. It's actually the top movie download on iTunes right now. But see if you can quite get this one.
I just have to mention this about the 300 and what the significance of that number is. It's symbolic. The movie now 300 with the 300 Spartans, it's an East versus West fight. I don't know if this is where the sophistication, why the president chose 300, and I don't know, but it signals maybe to Iran, because we see that because the movie was a big downer, and Iran wasn't allowed to be played, but because it showed the Persians in this negative, barbarous state. But that so I don't. Again, this is an example of that. if it isn't intended and it's an unintended consequence, you're thumbing your nose in another part of the region just because of your ignorance of what that means, that 300 military advisors, American Spartan warriors that are the special forces. And again, I don't know if that was intended or unintended, but it will signal a message to Iran.
Okay, so the president used the movie to send 300 members of the military to Iran. Residing in Outland. Here comes one more. We all know what goes on in North Korea these days. We all know that, quite frankly, we question just about everything that comes out of North Korea. Once again, on the movies here, there's a new movie, a forthcoming comedy starring Seth Rogen and James Franco, and it is called The Interview. Now, before we go ahead and make the connection here to North Korea, here's a piece of the trailer for the new movie.
You are entering into the most dangerous country on Earth. Kim Jong-un's people believe anything he tells them, including that he can speak to dolphins, or he doesn't urinate and defecate.
Oh. You telling me my man doesn't pee or poo? Everybody pees and poos. Where would he go otherwise? He'd explode. But he does talk to dolphins.
I guess. The country considers the movie an act of war and a wanton act of terror. Kim Jong-un has also labeled Rogen a gangster filmmaker. So in case something should happen, we now know where it started. Quite frankly, if they just would have taken Dennis Rodman, I think everything would have been fine, if you think about this. And finally, from today's edition of Outland, in South Florida, there is something, I guess, slightly amiss with a officer and a car. And, well, an officer of the law uses his vehicle in a rather interesting fashion.
Yeah, it's right down here in Las Olas, so I thought maybe an officer could find out what they're doing, because it's two young guys. They're like, 20-something. They're not dressed like police officers or anything. So
okay, so they're in marked BUM?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, can you tell me what they were yelling?
One thing was something about put your vaginas back inside. One of them was, how are your hot dogs? They're stopping traffic in the street because people think he's a sheriff, so he's stopping in the street and he's talking to girls on the sidewalk.
Ends up, it was an actual deputy behind the wheel. Deputy Rodrigo Mello was off duty when he took two drunken friends on a joyride in his marked 2007 Dodge Charger and gave one of them the free rein over the PA system, according to internal affairs records obtained by the Sun-Sentinel.
The deputy in question here, Mello, is 33 years of age. He was a deputy for nearly a decade, fired as a result of this August 11th incident. Since his termination in January, he has been seeking to regain his job through an arbitration process. So he let a friend have a good time with his loudspeaker at a party area near downtown Fort Lauderdale. And you wonder why we say that these people reside in Outland, which quite frankly is way out there. And again, if you think about it, honestly, I really think that everything that we've talked about here could have all been settled if they just would have brought in Dennis Rodman. Think about it, Rodman would have solved everything in Fort Lauderdale. He could have solved the thing in North Korea, and there would be no conspiracy. Do you perhaps have someone you'd like to nominate for Outland? That's where social media comes in, because perhaps you've seen a story that we need to talk about, those people who are on the fringe of life. You can talk about that, tell us more, and do that via social media. Stay with us, because this is Outland, and this is Midpoint, where every single day we question everything.
Hello, I'm Dr. Ben Carson. To save our health care, let's follow these principles. Our health is the most personal thing we possess. Its care must be under our control. Bureaucracy must be prevented from discouraging choice and innovation. Large-scale change shouldn't be imposed from the top down, because you have the right to choose what's best for you. Your personal medical information should be your property, period. States should have the flexibility to develop their own options. You should be free to buy coverage consistent with your moral and religious beliefs. Physicians deserve to practice without the fear of frivolous lawsuits. Join me. Save our health care. Please sign our petition today.
Call 1-800-425-6299 or visit our website. Call 1-800-425-6299 and sign the petition to save our health care.
Save our health care. Sign the petition today.
American Legacy PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Attention, catheter patients on Medicare.
I use catheters, and if you do too, please listen carefully. There is a new catheter that hurts less, and you can get a free sample by calling this number now.
Pain and urinary tract infections have been avoided by many of my patients. These new disposable catheters hurt less. It's an incredible new design that reduces pain. The eyelets are polished, so they glide smoothly and effortlessly across your sensitive skin. The old catheters would scrape and cut, causing pain and infections.
These new catheters are totally different, so smooth and painless. They changed my life.
Call now and get a free sample. Medicare and your insurance will pay for up to 200 of these catheters per month, all at little or no cost to you.
Call now for your free sample. It will arrive with a complete 90-day order, and if it doesn't reduce your pain, we'll pick them up for free. Call 800-259-1759.
The land of the free honors the bravest of the brave for their sacred pledge to protect our freedoms, our Constitution, and our way of life. We will always remember you. We will always salute you.
Overall health of the economy had its worst first quarter since the depths of the recession back in 2008. It fell by nearly 3%. Christine Romans is here to explain further. Why did this happen?
Terrible weather, Carol. Terrible weather. You had people in the first quarter. Remember how horrible that winter was? You had companies, businesses, the stock was sitting on the shelves. You had trucks that couldn't move merchandise around the country. You had open houses for homes that couldn't be had. You had job interviews that couldn't take place. And so you had 2.9% the economy shrank in the first quarter. That is really, really ugly.
It is, and while there are those wishing to stay away from the discussion, it must be placed on the table. That wonder about American energy dependence when once again we have massive instability in the Middle East. And then there's the recent numbers on the gross domestic product. Number down, the sky is falling. Please don't panic. Let us all make sense of it. Let's welcome in Chairman of the Society to Advance Financial Education, Steve Beeman, joins us today in Midpoint. Steve, thanks for being with us.
Well, it's my pleasure, as always, to be with you.
A pleasure to go ahead and now look at some numbers. And, okay, wait a minute. Let's just get it right out of the way. Should we all panic? Should we all be right now getting under the mattress here, throwing our money under it, and wondering when it's all going to crash?
Absolutely not. The first rule of successful investing is not to let your emotion get ahead of you, and a panic right now is not what you need, but calculated, rational thought.
All right, let's get to the numbers here on calculated, rational thought. 2.9%. Make some sense of this, if you would, for the general public, because let's face it, we're throwing numbers around here like crazy, and the guy or the gal sitting there right now worrying about their pension and their IRA and everything else is wondering, what does it really mean?
That's exactly right. If you look at the U.S. macroeconomic models that predict these things, they have so many variables in them, even the people who build them can't understand them. So to put it in English, we did come out of a very harsh winter, but also a time in which Social Security taxes boosted back up in January after a hiatus they had been on. That took a little bit of spending out of the consumer's pocket. We did see government deficits drop significantly, and that's a destimulative effect when it happens. So we had a number of things converging in the first quarter that caused the economy to look very bad on paper. Now, the reality is all of the economists predict a very strong second quarter, relatively speaking, so that will bring that back and negate the negative on it. But I think we need to be aware of it as people looking toward retirement and looking for how it affects us, because I think we feel this economy is not real strong and it's very fragile, but we should see a rebound here in the second quarter.
Why is it then that people don't think it's very strong when the numbers tell us, all right, there's been a dip here, but don't panic against it? You just hit one of the keys.
Well, we have a 24-hour news cycle, first of all, that fills people with a lot of fear. If you look at what's called the fear index right now, it's extremely high. Now, that's in the consumer side. If you look institutionally, though, there's a measure called the VIX, which is an ETF or exchange-traded fund that measures volatility, and the VIX is at a 2-year low. So clearly there's a disconnect between the average person and the institutional investor. And I think that's driven by fear, uncertainty, and doubt with all of the issues going on in the Middle East, the terrible things going on in Washington with the IRS scandal that everybody hears constantly about. So I think you have the general consumer saying, no, I don't like this. It doesn't feel very good. but businesses saying, well, we're shipping overseas, we're doing what we need to do. So there are cross currents that are creating this muddled economy.
I want to talk about that Middle East connection here in just a moment, but you mentioned convergences early, and we talked about the weather and so many other things here. In your professional opinion, of all of these convergences that happen, realizing, of course, let's throw out the weather here because we can't control what Mother Nature does, but out of all these things that kind of came to bear at one time, what was the most avoidable that we missed that could have turned the tide?
I think clearly there's a lot of fear in the small and mid-sized business community about the implementation of the Affordable Care Act. There's no question that that has affected their hiring practices. It's affected their capital investment positions. So coming into the beginning of 2014, that was a material effect on small and mid-sized businesses. You could argue it good or bad, it doesn't matter, but it creates instability and uncertainty for those people. So that started it. You follow on with what has been an increasingly volatile Middle East and a weather pattern that just was a vortex that happens once in a while.
But seeing as we still have Obamacare with us right now and knowing that that was one of the linchpins here, is there any reason to think it's going to get any better now for those employers? Because let's face it, they're in it right now. It's not going to change anytime soon, or at least we don't think it will. So won't this still just be a problem no matter how far we go into the future, as long as it's here and they still haven't figured out how to make the best of it?
Oh, I think what you said is the latter part is the most important, and that is business needs to figure out how to respond to this. When we're in a period of flux and they don't know which way the law is going, it makes it extremely difficult for business to plan. As it stabilizes, businesses will learn how to deal with it, whether they have more full-time workers or less, how they handle health care with this penalty that's now been delayed but will come into play. But the bottom line, businesses in America, especially large ones, are doing very well. They've got a lot of cash on the books. They have a lot of ability to exploit global opportunities. Investors in the, as you look at your 401k, I think people should be looking at global investment within their 401ks. We are one world now. And as Tom Friedman said in his book, the world's very flat, so we're all in this together.
All right, we're all in it together now, which means we have to pay attention to the planet, and that, of course, means what's happening on the other side of the world right now. What's happening in Iraq is having one big effect on people's wallets. It will certainly at the gas pump right now. But isn't there an issue of energy dependence here right now? Because we're right back to that argument that has been around for a while, and no matter how we look at it, if we are not more dependent ourselves, and we still have to wonder about what's happening on the other side of the world, this also will affect our GDP and also will affect every single dime that every American has or does not have in their pocket.
I think you're exactly right. You bring up a really important point. In the near term, and let's look at the next 5 years, we are reliant on Middle East oil, and therefore shocks that come out of this ISIS issue, if that affects the Straits, where you've got a quarter of the world's oil production coming out of Iraq, and if it affects that, we will see prices shoot up. We've already seen some of that with the futures markets driving prices to their $4 a gallon gas tank. You and I spoke about it last time. There's no real good future for that. Now, I would argue that going forward beyond 5 years, we do have an opportunity to start weaning off this dependence on fossil fuels and foreign oil. There are some major advances being made in solar technology that within 5 to 10 years could actually replace fossil fuels.
20 seconds. Can we say, though, that if there's one bright spot here, that the analysts will tell us that the economy has improved since March, so it's not as if it's all on a straight slide?
No, there's no question. The economy is not in the toilet right now. It has an opportunity here to grow. We need to get Washington to back out and put some policies in that are positive, and we need the globe to stabilize a little bit so we can all exploit the growth opportunities in the lower and the undeveloped world.
Steve, it always comes back to Washington one way or another, does it not?
Well, Washington is the epicenter of financial power now.
Every single time, no doubt about it. Steve Beeman, thanks so much for joining us, my friend. We'll do it again and again. As I always say, hopefully next time we have better news for everybody. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, Americans, so here comes the question to you now that we'll ask you on social media today. Are you comfortable? Do you think things are getting better? And if they're getting better, why? And if they're not, why? Give us some specifics here. We ask you about that on social media. Midpoint TV, hashtag Midpoint TV on Twitter, Facebook.com/Midpoint TV, or your email comments to connect@newsmaxtv.com. Midpoint, we question everything.
Falls are the #1 cause of injury to senior citizens. Falling down stairs can be disastrous. Acorn Stairlifts has a solution. Just don't fall. Sit, relax, ride with an Acorn Stairlift, the world's leader in stairlifts. That's right. Don't let limited mobility keep you from going up and down your stairs, even outside. Call Acorn Stair Lifts now for a free information kit and no obligation quote. Now you can safely ride with your Acorn Stair Lift.
Now I don't have to worry about him climbing those stairs again.
And our Acorn stair lift was very affordable.
Our Acorn stair lift is definitely more affordable than moving.
The Acorn Stair Lift has a padded seat and backrest for maximum comfort. It easily folds up for access to the stairway. 5 safety sensors stop your Acorn Stair Lift if there's something in the way. And it even runs during power outages.
And I'm the king of my own castle again.
You'll be working directly with the world's leader in stair lifts. That's right, there's no middleman. Acorn's trained technicians professionally install your stair lift directly to the staircase, in most cases in 2 hours or less, with no need for special construction. We don't leave until you're completely comfortable using your Acorn stair lift.
Don't risk a serious fall down the stairs.
I was really surprised at how little they cost.
Call for your free no-obligation information kit and quote from Acorn Stair Lifts. Just don't fall. Safely ride up and down your steps.
Give your life a lift with an Acorn stair lift.
Call 1-800-514-1402 for your free information kit. That number again is 1-800-514-1402. Or visit our website today.
Call now.
If you want to shed the fat and sculpt your body to get that slim, sexy look of your dreams, then you need to stop working out.
Say what?
And start rocking out with Rockin' Body, the fun new body makeover system that was created by fitness expert and Insanity creator Shaun T.
Rockin' Body combines dance and fitness in a fun new way so you can achieve insane weight loss.
I lost 30 pounds dancing.
Now you can tone and tighten your abs, shrink and shape your hips and thighs, and lift and firm your booty, all while you're just dancing.
I've lost 33 pounds. I feel sexy.
And now, for a limited time, the complete $80 Rockin' Body system is 75% off. That's right, Rockin' Body is only $19.95. We'll even upgrade you to express shipping free. Get the complete Rockin' Body system for only $19.95.
Call 1-800-718-8807 or order online at rockinbody.com. 1-800-718-8807. Call now.
Hi, I'm Ben Affleck. The only thing better than playing a hero in the movies is being a hero in real life. Like the 50,000 veterans who returned from Iraq and Afghanistan with devastating injuries. They are true heroes, and they're why I'm proud to support Paralyzed Veterans of America. For more than 60 years, Paralyzed Veterans of America has made a promise to never leave a fallen comrade behind. They make sure veterans with spinal cord injuries get the quality medical care, rehabilitation, and housing they need when they come home. They stay with our fallen heroes for the long term, offering counseling, job training, and support to help them regain the freedom and independence they fought so hard for, all at no cost to them. Our veterans fought for us. Let's fight for them. To learn more about how you can help, visit pva.org. That's pva.org. We will never leave a fallen comrade behind.
Welcome back to Midpoint. We tell you every day, let us know what you think on social media, and guess what? Here we go. Time to go ahead and dive into the social media mailbag, talking about the IRS scandal and Lois Lerner targeting Republican senators. This is almost getting fun to watch as some of the things that are coming in here. First of all, let's go to Foxy Hooligan. If there is not a smidgen of wrongdoing, why does Lois Lane take the fifth so as not to incriminate herself? Anybody, and I mean anybody, who had not done anything wrong nor was involved in not a smidgen of wrongdoing would have to be completely insane to admit wrongdoing by refusing to talk about no wrongdoing. All comes down to wrongdoing if you think about it here. Man Golfer is up next here. This crime against all citizens was not a crime of one. I think that's pretty much a given. If giving her immunity will move the investigation, give it to her. This goes much further than Lois, perhaps directly to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. That, of course, is part of the investigation. I also would like to see her get jail time. There will be conditions before giving her immunity, and I'm sure Representative Issa will get Representative Gowdy to help write those conditions. That's part of the whole discussion process here, because there's a lot of talk going around as whether or not Lois Lerner will get some sort of immunity. But if you ask those people who follow what goes on inside the Beltway, they will tell you that that's just not going to happen. She won't. She is a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat. She will stick with it, and she will not roll over. Okay, let's get one more in here quickly now from social media before we go ahead and take a break. Next up is Cletus. There are several senators and reps in this scandal, so they are shoveling kitty litter as fast as they can to cover their involvement. How dare you insult kitties like that? As long as the crooks are in the hearings to prevent the facts from being told, I fear the cover-up will succeed. I keep hoping someone inside with information might leak it to the committee, as happened in the Watergate case. I doubt, again, that will happen as well, but really, it's all going to be still a question of finding out the truth, wherever the truth may be. That will take quite a lot of time. Remember, we're dealing in the Beltway. Okay, remember now, we always take time out to get to your medical needs because, quite frankly, we ask about what you think about certain things, your social media, but we're also involved in your medical and helping you stay well. Here's Dr. Chauncey Crandall with today's Medical Minute.
If you have high cholesterol, you probably think that taking a statin drug is the best way to lower it. After all, why wouldn't you? Statins are among the most prescribed drugs in the world. But although they are great medications to those who truly need them, other people can lower their cholesterol just by adding certain foods to their diet. Here are the 3 cholesterol-lowering foods that you'll find at your supermarket. Number 1 is oatmeal. Oatmeal is a potent cholesterol-lowering food because oats are a soluble fiber. This means that they absorb the excess cholesterol in your digestive system and carry it out of your body. In addition, oatmeal also helps prevent diabetes and cancer as well. In fact, research shows that eating oatmeal on a regular basis can be as effective as taking a statin. Second, choose salmon over beef and you'll be replacing a food packed with cholesterol-raising saturated fat with one rich in monounsaturated fat. This is the type of good fat that makes salmon taste fattening, but it's not. Salmon is also packed with omega-3 fatty acids, which lower triglycerides, another dangerous blood fat. Third, if it's mid-afternoon and you're craving a snack, grab a handful of almonds. Eating almonds every day lowers your bad LDL cholesterol by about 9%. Almonds are also packed with other vitamins as well, but the best thing about almonds is that they don't taste like a health food. Almonds contain no cholesterol and are also packed with healthy monounsaturated oils. Since most of you are already reading my book, The Simple Heart Cure, I want you to go to chapter 11, in which I tell you about foods that can help you lower your cholesterol. I'm Dr. Chauncey Crandall, and thanks for watching this Health Minute. I'll see you next time.
Get your copy of Dr. Crandall's best-selling book, The Simple Heart Cure, for just $4.95 with his special offer. Go to www.simpleheartbook.com to get your copy today. That's simpleheartbook.com.
If you want an adjustable bed, shop by phone and save on a new Craftmatic, the best-selling adjustable brand ever. Call for prices and free information. There's no obligation. Our everyday low prices are guaranteed. Compare us to the leading memory foam brand and save hundreds, even $1,000 or more. Discover our 30-day in-home trial. We won't be undersold. There's no hassle, no pressure, no pain. No salesman will come to your home. Convenient delivery, installation, and in-home service in the continental U.S. Watch TV, read, eat, rest, and relax at the touch of a button. Enjoy personal heat and soothing massage at a price you can afford. So why consider anything else? Discover Craftmatic for less, up to 50% less. Call for prices and free information and save hundreds, even $1,000 or more on luxurious memory foam. There's no obligation. Call now.
Call 1-800-686-3106. That's 1-800-686-3106. Call 1-800-686-3106. Call now.
Are you having problems with the IRS? Liens and levies, garnishments, seizures, penalties? Are you being audited? Our trained professionals at Wallen Associates can help. We've helped thousands of individuals and businesses solve their tax problems and save big money. Put a wall between you and the IRS. Wallen Associates has over 30 years of experience dealing with the IRS, and we can help your family or your business.
Call 800-745-2250, 800-745-2250.
Have you or someone you know developed serious complications from surgery using a transvaginal mesh? The FDA recently issued a warning that transvaginal mesh can cause serious side effects and complications, such as additional surgery, perforations, vaginal scarring, and mesh erosion or disintegration. Over 20,000 severe complications have been recorded, and so far there have been 2 jury verdicts totaling more than $830 million for injured victims. You won't pay a thing until your case is settled. Call us today.
The absolute worst time for wealthy politicians to joke about their own financial status and perhaps indicating they are poor? That would be every single day. What is next for law enforcement in stopping them from being able to hunt down and nail the bad guys? You'll find plenty of people wondering that in the wake of the recent Supreme Court decisions. And this is the historic day when President John F. Kennedy noted that we are all around the world one certain type of people, and no, he did not mean jelly donuts. The table is set. Time for another serving where we question everything for Thursday, June 26th, 2014. Keen to note that Uruguayan soccer player Luis Suarez has received a ban of 9 games and 4 months for biting an opponent at the World Cup, and this awaiting word on his starring role in the next season of The Walking Dead. Please allow us to set this table with another edition of Newsmax Now. Here's John Bachman.
And first, we'll let everybody know, Ed, that the U.S. men's national team has advanced to the knockout round of 16. They did lose today to Germany 1-0, but the goal differential allowed them to advance on anyway. We'll look forward to their next match coming up in the next round of the World Cup. Also, some sad news to report today from Washington at this moment. Former U.S. Senator and Republican majority leader, I should say, Howard Baker died just a few moments ago. Baker, who served 18 years in the Senate, died as a result of complications from a stroke he suffered over the weekend. Baker was 88 years old. And at the White House yesterday, President Obama spending the day with outgoing Israeli President Shimon Peres. The 90-year-old Israeli president is making his final foreign policy trip before he steps down from that position next month. The Israeli president said that talks between him and President Obama touched on both Iraq and Iran. Perez said that the best thing that could happen to Iraq is to become, quote, a united country. And now today, Shimon Peres was awarded the U.S. Congressional Medal by House and Senate leaders. The outgoing Israeli president urged America's political leaders to continue to work with Israel and combat Islamic extremists during his final address to the U.S. Congress.
We must fight not only the acts of terror, but the roots of terrorism.
Also at today's ceremony, House Speaker John Boehner said the medal represents America's commitment to always stand by Israel. Shimon Peres' voice will be missed on the international stage. And happening right now, House and Senate Democratic leaders are holding a news conference to mark the one-year anniversary of the Senate's immigration reform legislation. And Senator Harry Reid has this message for Republican John Boehner.
So instead of wasting time suing the president, the House should do the work of the nation, pass comprehensive immigration reform.
Well, as we reported earlier, House Speaker John Boehner plans to sue President Obama about his executive privilege there. Boehner says the lawsuit accuses the president of failing to comply with the Constitution and laws passed by Congress, of course, in response to some of those executive orders. And remember the Sudanese woman arrested for converting to Christianity? Well, she was freed after her story made headlines throughout the world, but she was rearrested earlier this week when she tried to leave her own country for the U.S., but now there are reports saying that Miriam Ibrahim has been freed once again. Ibrahim's lawyer said that she was released today after foreign diplomats pressured the Sudanese government to set her free. We're back with more news in 30 minutes.
The court today agreed with the broadcasters that what Aereo is doing looks a lot like what a cable system does.
And that wasn't the only thing they did. The Supreme Court has limited the president's appointment powers, and this week lowered another boom on law enforcement. No checking into someone's cell phone without a search warrant. Already there are plenty of people wondering what is next in trying to catch the bad guys in the act while still keeping tabs on personal privacy. You have Aereo and so much more. It's another day in the life of the Supremes, and now making sense of it all in the real world. Welcome to Midpoint, constitutional law professor, political strategist, and best-selling author of The President's War. Chris DeRose joins us today on Midpoint. Chris, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Chris, we have so much to talk about here. We got to catch up on this.
It was a busy week for the Supremes.
It's been a stunningly busy week in everything that's going on. Want to start out with something because this is an anniversary here today, too. This is the first anniversary of a SCOTUS's decision striking down a portion of the Defense of Marriage Act. While we talk about that, then just yesterday, Indiana's ban on gay marriage was ruled unconstitutional. So this is a snowballing effect here. I think that what we are seeing here is, quite frankly, there is no stopping it at this point. Those who say that you can find a way to stop the gay marriage allowances somewhere here in America, it's just not going to happen, correct?
I think that's right. I think we are heading toward a point where it is inevitably the judicial holding of the country that gay marriage will be legal in every state. So we've seen one state after another, the marriage laws have fallen like dominoes. Here's what I think is going to happen. I can come back on the show and take credit for this at some point if this is what the Supreme Court does. So you saw how they skirted the issue in the DOMA case last year, right? Mm-hmm. Where they refused to find a fundamental constitutional right to gay marriage. Supreme Court wants to steer clear of these contentious issues. So here's what I think they'll do instead. The Ninth Circuit recently, in the GlaxoSmithKline case, found that there is a higher level of scrutiny applied to laws that classify people based on sexual preference. So that was a case where a gay juror was challenged simply for being gay in a case in California. And so the Ninth Circuit has held that being gay is a protected class, more similar to the protections that courts have for women, than to be reviewed under rational basis, which is the lower level for review. And so what I think the Supreme Court may do is take that GlaxoSmithKline case, hold that being gay is a protected class, and then other courts throughout the country can use that to shoot down any remaining marriage laws that limit marriage to one man and one woman.
Let us then move on now to the one that I spoke about early on, and that is the thing that a lot of my friends in law enforcement are talking about as well. Phones cannot be searched. We're talking about cell phones without a warrant here. I'll be very honest, a couple of the law enforcement professionals that I spoke with said, how are we now supposed to do our job? Because that is a key manner in which that we are able to gain evidence. However, on the other side, there are those saying, wait a minute, those phones are your property. They are personal property. They contain personal messages. It is just the same as going into some people's homes. Make some sense of this for us, will you please?
I think this is a huge victory for the Constitution and for our privacy rights, which are very much on our minds today. With NSA issues, Edward Snowden, we're concerned with increasing technology and the advantages it gives the government to pry into our lives. We're concerned about what remains to us to keep private and to keep secret. And so I would, number one, start, I guess, by asking law enforcement, what they were doing and how they were building cases 15 years ago before cell phones were ubiquitous. Certainly we were solving crimes before then, and we were able to build cases before that. But all this requires is that a judge the judge issue a warrant, the judge find that there's a probable cause that something incriminating is on your cell phone. But for police to be, the state's lawyers argued that this was akin to opening up someone's cigarette pack and looking in their cigarette pack to find something. Cell phones are a very different deal than a cigarette pack. People have photos, videos, text messages, emails, very personal information, sensitive information that we don't want to be shared with the government without a warrant. The Supreme Court still allows for emergency situations, so the proverbial ticking time bomb situation or a child being held hostage. If there's an exigent circumstance like that, similar to other exceptions to the warrant requirements, a warrant's not necessary. But typically speaking now, Supreme Court has ruled that we're going to need a warrant to search our cell phones.
What you just said is going to be my next point. You talked about those exigent circumstances. That is, should the police confront an authentic now or never situation, according to the Chief Justice, they may well be entitled to search the phone under a separate strand of the Fourth Amendment law. Now there's something else. We're getting into technology here, though, because more and more we're finding ways to hide information. Here's something else, according to Chief Justice Roberts. He says the possibility that evidence could be destroyed or hidden by, quote, remote wiping or encryption programs was remote, speculative, and capable of being addressed. That's pretty broad, actually, if you ask me, because there's an awful lot of programs out there that do these. So if you're a little tech savvy, there's a number of ways to cover up what you have on that phone by using some of these things that the Chief Justice says is a remote possibility. Would you not agree?
Well, what the Supreme Court holds in their decision, and no one's going to give the Supremes credit for being the most tech-savvy 9 people in the world. Right?
Okay, that's fair.
No one's ever confused them for that. But they do make some reasonable points. And so to prevent the remote wiping of a cell phone, police officers have the option of removing the battery, shutting the cell phone down. So they have options to actually preserve evidence. Because obviously in any other situation where evidence is in the process of being destroyed, that's an exception to the warrant requirement. So people can charge into a building, for instance, if they think a crime is happening, or they hear you flushing the toilet. You're there to serve, you're there on suspicion of arresting someone for a drug crime, those sorts of exigent circumstances. So the court says even in cases like this, the state didn't have many examples of people remotely wiping their cell phone drive when it's within an evidence cell somewhere. This just wasn't happening, and even if it was, there are measures the state could take to protect from it.
Something else here, the free speech rights of abortion opponents, the court ruling unanimously that Massachusetts went too far when it created 35-foot buffer zones around abortion clinics to keep demonstrators away from patients. Break this down for us, would you please?
Big victory for the First Amendment, because we know at least 5 justices on the Supreme Court believe that there's a fundamental constitutional right to have an abortion. And so this was a big victory for free speech. Obviously, at least 5 justices on the court not sympathetic to the pro-life arguments being made outside of these abortion clinics, but finding that Massachusetts' law, which created a 35-foot buffer, was too far for people to effectively exercise their First Amendment right. There are people who will stand outside abortion clinics, who will try to encourage women going inside to make a different choice, to let them know about alternatives. And so at 35 feet, especially in an urban area, you're not catching anybody going into or out of these clinics. And so the Supreme Court correctly found that this was too unreasonable of a burden on our First Amendment rights. And additionally, the Massachusetts law actually had an exception for clinic employees. So what you would see is pro-life demonstrators would be forced to stand 35 feet away from the clinics, but the abortion clinic employees could come outside and actually engage in free speech to tell the potential patients, don't listen to these guys, they don't know what they're talking about, let's keep walking, let's go into the building. So they could exercise their free speech rights within the buffer zone, but pro-life opponents of abortion could not exercise those same exact First Amendment rights in the same buffer zone.
Chris, one more thing, couple of minutes we have left here, and this really shocked a lot of people here. The court limiting the president's power, and this was a direct strike at the Obama administration, to fill high-level vacancies with temporary appointments. This goes back to some NLRB confirmations that the president had made a couple of years ago, basically saying that without Senate confirmation, they were illegal. This is a huge decision.
I think it is a huge decision. I think we've looked increasingly, those of us who are advocates of a constitutional framework, we have a president who talks about working around Congress, a president who blames the founding fathers for his inability to get his agenda passed, who doesn't seem to really like the idea of separation of powers. So what President Obama did was he made a decision that Congress was not in session. Congress did not agree that they were not in session. They argued that they were in session. So this was tested, this proposition was tested over the recess appointment, which the founding fathers put into the Constitution in an era where Congress did not meet for most of the year, and before jet travel allowed members of Congress to move quickly back and forth between D.C. and their districts. And so what the president did was he took this recess appointment power, the power the president has in the Constitution to fill vacancies during a recess. He decided the Senate was in recess, even though they said they weren't, and made these appointments anyway, totally sidestepped their advise and consent power to prevent these nominees from reaching the National Labor Relations Board. So I think it's a big victory for the rule of law, a big victory for the Constitution, and a stunning rebuke to this president who has increasingly acted as though the Constitution and the rules don't apply to him.
Hate to do this. I only have 20 seconds left. The Aereo decision, was that much of a shock? Because really it was almost in many people's minds theft of copyrighted material.
Yeah, you know, I'm an author, as you pointed out. My book, The President's War, came out this week, and I love the fact that I get royalties from sales of The President's War. And similarly, content producers want to make money off of their content that they produce. And so Aereo was providing public performances of their content and making money from it. And so it's not, I don't see it as a holding with wide-ranging complications. I think Aereo will find a licensing agreement with the networks, and everybody will be happy. They'll find a way to stay in business.
That's exactly what will happen. Try to skirt it first and then go ahead and go for the money afterwards. Always a pleasure to have you on the show, Chris. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Pleasure is mine.
All right. Making sense of what the Supreme Court had to say. You make sense of it and tell us what you think on Twitter, hashtag Midpoint. Also on email, and also go to the Facebook page. Leave it there, /Midpoint TV. Because here on Midpoint every day, we question everything.
Do you own mutual funds? You may be paying fees and costs of up to 5% and not even know it. Fisher Investments isn't a mutual fund, and we don't have hidden fees. Do you own an annuity? Your broker may have made a commission of 8% or more when he sold it to you. Are you sure he had your best interests in mind? At Fisher Investments, we're not brokers, and we don't earn commissions on trades or by selling you products. With our model, as your portfolio grows, we grow.
To learn more about the Fisher Investments difference, call the number on your screen now. We'll send you our free DVD, Investing Secrets for 2014, and our special report, The 8 Biggest Mistakes Investors Make. Plus, the first 100 callers get a free 1-year subscription to Fisher Investments Stock Market Outlook, with insights from our company founder and respected market forecaster, Ken Fisher. Be prepared in 2014. Call now, 1-800-575-0066, 1-800-575-0066.
If you don't have life insurance, a final expense insurance plan pays cash to your family for final and all other expenses. If you're unable to purchase life insurance due to a pre-existing or current medical condition, call us right now for information and a free consultation. Rates will never increase, the policy cannot be canceled, and there are no restrictions on how your beneficiaries can use the money.
Call 1-800-364-1813. 1-800-364-1813.
People ask me all the time, George, what do I do with my idea for a new product? I tell them, call my friends at InventHelp.
Call InventHelp today for free information. InventHelp has been providing patent referrals, preparing ideas, and submitting to companies for more than 30 years.
I believe every inventor deserves the opportunity to step into the ring and take their best shot. Put InventHelp in your corner.
For your free inventors information, call 1-800-520-7097.
Visit phassociation.org to help provide hope for children with PH. Hope for Ian, Katie Grace, Maddie, and me, Lucas. The Pulmonary Hypertension Association, empowered by hope.
Is the ability to buy contraceptives that are now widely available. My Lord, all you have to do is walk into a 7-Eleven or any shop on any street in America and have access to them. Is that right to access those and to have them paid for? Is that such a towering good that it would suffocate the rights of conscience? I don't think so, but I hope the Supreme Court agrees.
While it has not occupied much of the top-line news in recent weeks, the Supreme Court decision in the Hobby Lobby case will have widespread ramifications. And those minimum wage protesters who wanted more money from fast food chains, don't say we didn't warn you about what might happen to your jobs. That and much more. Let's welcome into Midpoint Director of Health Policy and a Senior Policy Analyst at the Independent Women's Forum, Hadley Heath Manning, joins us today on Midpoint. Hadley, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Is it not fair to say, I'm going to start right out with Hobby Lobby here, that as we wait for this decision, there are certain things that it won't resolve? For instance, I think people are still hoping that it will resolve or give us some idea of the actual legality of the ACHA, and it really won't go there to this point, correct?
No, these lawsuits are specifically about a requirement from the Department of Health and Human Services pursuant to the Affordable Care Act that defines, as part of the minimum essential health benefits required in each insurance plan, what type of preventative care services have to be available specifically to women. So this is a very specific mandate within a specific part of a very big bill. It's a bill that, as you may know, is about 2,500 pages long, and this is just one specific contention with that mandate.
What is the basic consensus here? And again, of course, you and I are not sitting here. I'm not a lawyer. I only play one on TV. You certainly have much more of a legal background than I do. But we're sitting here watching and waiting for the Supreme Court to make a decision on this. If you were to sit there and try to get in the minds of the justices as they're weighing this, what's going to be the one or two things that you believe is going to be those issues that will vex them the most in trying to make this decision?
Right. Well, importantly, people on the street have their own opinions about birth control and whether or not their employer should provide health insurance coverage that includes birth control and different types of birth control. But what the Supreme Court issue boils down to are two specific things. The first is First Amendment freedom of religion. That's something that the court will have to weigh and ask questions such as, how far are we going to go to apply those rights in the First Amendment and the Bill of Rights to groups of people when they work as for-profit businesses? So in this case, Hobby Lobby stores and Conestoga Wood. Those are for-profit, family-owned businesses, and the court may draw a distinction between them, individuals, or publicly held corporations, which are bigger. And the second major issue, of course, is the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, a statute from 1993. The court will have to weigh a couple of tests within that legislation that tell us how far the government can go in seeking a compelling public interest. So they have to weigh whether or not this birth control mandate serves a compelling public interest. And they have to ask, secondly, whether or not this is the least restrictive means to reaching that goal. So if they find that, for example, providing widespread access to birth control through employer-provided insurance is a compelling public interest, then they have to weigh whether or not the government took the least restrictive route to getting there. And I think that's going to be a very difficult case for the government to make.
I think here's the most difficult thing about it. If you listen to Hobby Lobby, and we have a sound clip I want you to hear, and this is the folks at Hobby Lobby saying that basically the government should not interfere with people's religious beliefs, and that is basically the main issue that they're standing on. Here's that sound.
Stand.
I would be inspired by the Hobby Lobby. I think they're just true Americans. They're saying, look, the genius of America is that religious convictions affect the way we act. America is at her strongest, at her best, when people can bring everything into the public square, including their moral, ethical, spiritual, and religious convictions. And the government should never force us to do anything that is contrary to those deepest held convictions.
Is there any thinking process here, Hadley, on this court itself when it comes down to religious convictions and how they might be swayed or where they might go, using those two words as part of their decision process?
Well, of course, I believe the Supreme Court and all the members of the Supreme Court believe in First Amendment rights for individuals. We saw that today as they unanimously affirmed that we have freedom of speech. Massachusetts actually had a statute that was struck down today in a unanimous decision from the Supreme Court that we have freedom of speech even within what were called buffer zones in Massachusetts around abortion clinics. So the Supreme Court believes in those rights for individuals, especially the freedom of religion has been sacrosanct in American constitutional law. But this is a question of how do we apply that to businesses? And the government has done a couple of things just in their actions, I believe, to undermine their case that groups of people don't have religious convictions. They have provided an exemption, for example, to this mandate for houses of worship or organizations that are explicitly religious, but they haven't provided further exemptions for family-owned businesses or groups of people that are hospitals, schools, and not houses of worship. So that seems to indicate that there's not a strong enough compelling government interest that they wouldn't make exemptions for some. And the question is, when do we stop or start being religious people? We're still religious and we still maintain those convictions even when we act in a for-profit business.
All right, let's turn to the economy here a little bit, economics, if you will, please. Millions of people struggling to get by. Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden making jokes, backing up a little bit on some of their wealth issues right here. And I think it's got a lot of people very upset. They continue to back up on it a little bit, sort of make excuses again for what they may have said here. But isn't this just the wrong time, if you look at our history right now with so many people suffering, the wrong time to make any sort of jokes about your wealth and what you have and whether you're poor or not?
Well, this raises a question that's been at work in politics for a while now, and that is, how do Americans feel about wealth and poverty? Specifically, we saw in the last election cycle Mitt Romney, a very wealthy individual, running for president, and now it seems that politicians who want to vie for the highest national offices of the land want to reach out to Americans who maybe don't have as much wealth and at least pretend in some of these cases that they can understand. Hillary actually used the word dead broke. She said that she and Bill were dead broke when they were leaving the White House. And that sort of equates to a gaffe in her case, because we know that their financial situation was not like so many Americans who are suffering to get by today. But this is sort of a question of, do we aspire to be like wealthy people? Do we respect wealthy people? Do we believe that they've earned their money? Or do we despise wealthy people? And unfortunately, I think on the side of politics where Hillary and Joe Biden fall, there is more of a depiction of wealth as a bad thing. And so they're trying to shun any idea that they might be wealthy people themselves.
It's interesting. There have been a couple of stories this week that have talked about liberal millionaires who are unhappy or unwilling to tell people that they're millionaires because they fear what that reaction will be. Frankly, if you work for it, shouldn't you be allowed to say it anyway if you have money and just come right out and be honest about it?
Well, absolutely. You and I may not begrudge people for their wealth, but in politics, especially with the issue of wealth inequality being at the forefront of the Democratic agenda right now, the idea of wealth redistribution sort of it rests on the foundation that wealth is not earned, but it's something that people luck into, and then there's a sense of shame that comes along with that wealth or that success. So I think that's really the underlying question. Do Americans believe that wealth is something we earn and something to be proud of, or is it something that we should be ashamed of because it's just sort of circumstantial?
Couple of minutes we got left here. This is interesting, and I've seen a couple of stories at different restaurants here. McDonald's is going to have an order ahead and payments app, and I have seen this tested. I don't want to say it, but I've seen it in a couple of chains, I believe, in different areas. Basically, no servers. Last time I checked, you take the servers out of it, that means somebody's losing a job.
Well, that may seem like a simple explanation on the surface level. It may seem that automation replaces people. You might have remembered from the president's speech several years ago when he blamed some of our economic troubles on ATMs. He pointed out that we no longer talk to bank tellers when we use ATMs. But that sort of economic and technological progress actually could represent the addition of more jobs if we look into different sectors. You know, it takes a different type of job to develop the software that you may use at a kiosk or on a smartphone to order a cheeseburger at McDonald's. So this isn't necessarily a bad thing, and if you look at the downstream effects, it's not replacing workers, but it is something that we should take into account when we examine how our economy is changing.
Briefly, though, isn't it fair to say, though, that there are workers out there who are seeing this, and there are some workers who will lose their job, at least in the early stages of this, as companies look to find new ways to make more profit and have fewer human costs involved on a daily basis, correct?
Well, there is something to be said for creative destruction, which is the economic progress or process of innovation, replacing different industries, replacing different types of jobs. So yes, you may see some shifting, but ultimately the net is as a gain for the United States. We count technological progress across the world as a net gain for economies as they see greater productivity.
Hadley, you can't stop technology one way or another, although last time I checked, hopefully they have still yet to come up with a robot to do the anchor's job, so I'm okay, and as an expert, you're okay, so I think we're in pretty good shape at this point. At least I would hope so. Hadley Heath Manning, thank you so much for joining us. We'll do it again.
Thank you.
All right, my pleasure. It is fair, though. I mean, I've seen this in a couple of restaurants where they now have you go to the table, you sit down, you place your order, it comes to you. It has taken some people out of work. It has taken some jobs out of the mix here. Then again, as she points out, it will just take time. All right, a lot of things we have discussed here. We've talked about the Supreme Court. We've talked about jobs, so many other things. Now I'm going to put it to you because you get a chance to tell us what you think. We read them back here. Tweet me, if you will. Tweet it to the hashtag Midpoint. As well, also email connect@Newsmax TV and go to the Facebook page. Yours truly is going to start wandering over to that Facebook page quite a lot here in the next few months. That's /Midpoint TV, because here we question everything.
Hi, I'm Mike Reagan. If you're a senior or baby boomer, you may be missing out on some important information. Tens of millions of boomers are set to retire, yet many don't know that how you file your Social Security can dramatically change the amount of money you collect. That's why Newsmax created a special report offering you the best strategies to maximize your Social Security benefits. For example, This report reveals a weird trick that could help you add up to $152,000 to your Social Security payouts. It also shows how some qualifying recipients can add up to $1,000 to their monthly payments. To get your copy with our free offer, along with 7 additional money-making booklets, simply go online. Newsmax says this report is a critical resource for anyone over the age of 50. So go to our website today and find out if you qualify to add extra money to your Social Security. Remember, it's your money. You deserve the most back in your retirement.
Victims of mesothelioma and lung cancer caused by asbestos and their families may be entitled to receive a cash award from over $18 billion in asbestos trust funds now available. If you or a loved one was diagnosed with mesothelioma or lung cancer caused by asbestos, call the number on your screen now. Even if a loved one has passed due to mesothelioma or asbestos lung cancer, you may still be entitled to a cash award. Mesothelioma is a rare cancer caused by exposure to asbestos. Many victims were in the Navy, shipyards, or power plants, or worked in the construction, plumbing, insulation, or automotive trades. Many more were exposed in and around their homes. For nearly 30 years, we have successfully helped thousands of victims and families get the financial compensation they deserve. Time is limited. If you or a loved one has been diagnosed with mesothelioma or lung cancer caused by exposure to asbestos,
call 1-800-290-4243 now.
Not even this floodlight is bright enough to light up a room. But now there's the new high-tech Torchlight from Bell & Howell. Ordinary flashlights just have a narrow beam, but the Torchlight has a brighter, wider beam that brilliantly lights up the entire room. Its 28 ultra-bright LEDs give you over 100,000 hours of bright, reliable light. And look, the Torchlight is also a flashlight that clearly lets you see wherever you go. The powerful magnetic base securely attaches it to any metal surface. And it even rotates an incredible 180 degrees. It's like having an extra pair of hands. Use it at your computer, as a table lamp, or to light up those dark, unlit areas. It's weatherproof, and with the built-in hook, you can hang it anywhere. The Bell & Howell Torchlight is yours for just $10. But wait, call now and we'll double your order. That's 2 for the price of 1. Just pay separate processing and handling. Order your Torchlight now.
To order your Torchlight and receive a second one free, have your credit card ready and call toll-free. 1-800-715-4500.
Francesca Page, and here's your Newsmax Now update. Big news for soda lovers and people who enjoy sugary drinks. Earlier today, New York's Court of Appeals ruled that the ban on large sugary drinks is illegal. Former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg pushed for the ban on sugary drinks larger than 160 ounces as a way to fight obesity and other problems. These drinks have been linked to 180,000 deaths worldwide. And a few hours north of New York City, dozens of concert goers were rushed to Boston hospitals after suffering from drug and alcohol poisoning. The medical problems happened during a packed electronic festival featuring DJ Avicii. Authorities say there were no reported fatalities, but the concert goers were mostly ranged from the ages of 16 to 25. That's your Newsmax Now update. See you in 30 minutes.
Well, I think they can talk about it all they want. I don't think it's good.
My mother always told me never speak when someone else is speaking because it's rude, so I thought I would wait. That's okay. Let us move on here because they were dreamers. They were thrill seekers, and it's fair to say they were considered something of a pair of loons by those who were watching what they thought was possible. It's the story of Orville and Wilbur, and it's this American moment.
December 17th, 1903 was a calm day at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, when two brothers, Orville and Wilbur Wright, readied their aircraft for a demonstration that would change history forever. Their initial flight only lasted for 120 feet, but it was enough to eventually pave a pathway to the stars. Although the brothers were not the first to build and fly experimental aircraft, they were the first ones to invent the mechanical controls that made fixed-wing, powered flight possible. But that proved both a blessing and a curse to an industry in its infancy. The Wright brothers' practice of demanding excessive fees for use of their patents and their litigious nature had an immediate and negative effect on the growth, safety, and improvement of the new industry of aviation. In 1917, Congress, recognizing air power would play a vital role in the upcoming war, passed legislation which, in effect, reduced the Wright brothers' royalty of $1,000 per plane to $200. The reduced fees sparked an explosion of growth and innovation in the new industry. Although initially outraged, the Wright family quickly realized the lower fees made it possible for more airplane manufacturers to enter the field. With more manufacturers came more planes, and with more planes came more royalties. Soon after, their royalties had exceeded $2 million in an age before income tax. Soon, America was leading the air revolution. In 1927, young aviator Charles Lindbergh departed New York's Roosevelt Field for a 3,600-mile, 33.5-hour transatlantic journey to Le Bourget Field in Paris, France. The dream of the Wright brothers had become a reality, and America had led the way thanks to Orville and Wilbur Wright. For Newsmax TV, I'm Bill Curtis, and this is an American Moment.
Now, the nice American moment today, the United States did not defeat Germany. They lost 1-0, but because of Portugal winning only by a 2-1 count, the American soccer team does move on to the knockout round. Okay, good. We'll take that. Move on. All right, let's move on to Flashback, checking with our compatriots at those shows that bookend Midpoint every single day. Let's go and start out first with America's Forum. Their guest was Cleta Mitchell, the partner at Foley & Lardner, LLP, spoke with J.D. Hayworth on America's Forum and said Lois Lerner, and this, of course, goes down to the IRS scandal case right here, saying Lois Lerner, even though people are saying that they might offer her immunity, they're saying she probably won't take immunity or talk.
Well, I think they can talk about it all they want. I don't think it's going to do any good. I mean, I don't think she's going to talk to them ever. She thinks she doesn't have to, and I think that I mean, they can talk about immunity, but I doubt that there's anything that they can do in that regard. And I think that here's the problem. I think that the Justice Department is going to protect her as long as she doesn't say or do anything that incriminates the White House or anyone in the White House or anyone on behalf of the White House. And I think if she starts talking, I think that all bets are off, and then the Justice Department would come after her.
Yeah, there you go. All bets are going to be off. Now let's move on to the Steve Malzberg Show. Gary Bauer, chairman of the Campaign for Working Families PAC, was talking to Steve and says the White House, and a lot of people joining this, has lost the battle of public opinion regarding that very IRS scandal.
It's astonishing. To the new White House press secretary, he may be setting a record on developing a credibility gap in the first 48 hours on the job. There's new polling out today that shows that only 12% of the American people accept the explanation of the President of the United States.
Yeah, the Fox News poll, yeah.
Yeah. The president said just the other day, there's not a scintilla of evidence that anything inappropriate happened at the IRS. No, there isn't a scintilla of evidence. There's a tractor trailer truck worth of evidence that inappropriate things have happened at the IRS. And I think the White House has already lost this battle as far as public opinion goes. Whether or not anybody actually has to pay legally for what was done, unfortunately, is still an open question.
No question about the show that follows us, the show that precedes us, of course. 9 o'clock every day, Monday through Friday, Eastern Time, America's Forum with J.D. Hayworth. We follow here with Midpoint from noon until 3 o'clock. And then the Steve Malzberg Show from New York, 3 to 6 o'clock. That is Eastern Time every day, right here on Newsmax TV. All right, coming up next, it is the day we all became one person. We all became one identity. We all, according to one president of the United States, became one type of people. Or we became a jelly donut. Depends, of course, on which part you actually believe. That and a whole lot more as we continue right here on Midpoint, where every day we question everything.
Meet Jill. She thought she'd feel better after seeing her doctor, and she might have if not for Kari, the identity thief who stole Jill's social security number to open credit cards, destroying Jill's credit and her dream of retirement. Every year, millions of Americans just like you learn that a little personal information in the wrong hands could wreak havoc on your life. This is identity theft, and no one helps stop it better than LifeLock. LifeLock offers the most comprehensive identity theft protection available. If Jill had LifeLock's protection, she may have been notified before it was too late. LifeLock's credit notification service is on the job 24/7. As soon as they detect a threat to your identity within their network, they will alert you, protecting you before the damage is done. And LifeLock offers the proactive protection of checking and savings account takeover alerts. LifeLock's comprehensive identity theft protection guards your social security number, your money, your credit, even the equity in your home.
Doesn't matter how old you are or how much money you have. Identity thieves steal from everyone. You have to protect yourself. I protect myself with LifeLock.
While identity theft can't be completely stopped, no one protects you better than LifeLock. And LifeLock stands behind their protection with the power of their $1 million service guarantee. You have so much to protect and nothing to lose when you call LifeLock right now and try 60 days of identity theft protection risk-free. 60 days risk-free. Use promo code ONGUARD. Order now and get this document shredder to keep sensitive documents out of the wrong hands. A $29 value, free.
Call 1-800-966-8458 or go to lifelock.com/onguard to try 60 days of LifeLock identity theft protection risk-free and get a document shredder free. Call 1-800-966-8458 right now.
Hi, my name is John Bachman. I'm 34 years old, and I'm an anchor at Newsmax TV, and there's no place else I'd rather be. There is so much gloom and doom out there right now. People want to talk about problems, but that's changing. The conversation is changing. People want to talk now about solutions, and that is what Newsmax offers. I mean, if there's somebody who is going to contribute something to the conversation, we're going to try to talk to them.
I know of no town, no city that has been besieged for 18 years that still lives with the vitality and the force and the hope and the determination of the city of West Berlin. Today, in the world of freedom, the proudest boast is Ich bin ein Berliner.
Indeed. June 26, 1963, 22 months after Soviets supported East Germany, and they put up, basically just blew everything up, put up the Berlin Wall, separated a city and a nation. President John Kennedy made a memorable speech that is marked today as an historic moment in the Cold War. So let's bring it forward to our day and time now. Welcoming the coordinator and professor of American Studies at Lynn University in Boca Raton, Florida, Dr. Robert Watson joins us in the studio today. Dr. Watson, thank you very much for being here.
My pleasure.
Ich bin ein Berliner. We are all Berliners, brother.
We are all Berliners. Yes. Great speech, one of the greatest of the 20th century. And that line was fantastic, and he preceded that line with another great line. He said, 2,000 years ago, the proudest boast was civis Romanus sum. I am a Roman citizen. And then he forwarded it to the present time, Ich bin ein Berliner, with that Massachusetts accent, forgetting the R's in Berliner.
It's perfect.
But, yeah. And 450,000 people was estimated were there, which is unthinkable, that size. They went wild. You could, the excitement in the air. And Kennedy had, it was his 4th day in Germany. He visited Bonn, he visited Cologne, a couple other cities, and the crowds were huge, the excitement was there. So they were prepared for a big day, but even he and some of his top aides were shocked at the warm response and the enthusiasm from the crowd that day.
Is it fair to say that, because that came in, I mean, a major point of the Cold War, that this brought the two nations together? Certainly we're talking about the 60s, we're still talking about World War II was still in the minds of so many people. It's not as if it happened a long time ago, it was 15 years maybe, and this was a true unifying moment that still speaks to the German relations with America today.
Absolutely. We need to put this in context. This is 2 years after the Cuban Missile, a year after the Cuban Missile Crisis, 2 years after the Bay of Pigs. So we're at the height of the Cold War. Kennedy, of course, botches the Bay of Pigs, but handles the Cuban Missile Crisis brilliantly. The speech essentially had 3 audiences. Number one was the Russians, the Soviets. We're here. We're not going to back off from our allies. We're going to stick with West Germany. The second audience was the world in the larger Cold War. The world was picking sides in this global chess game. We wanted to remind the world that we're not going to shirk our responsibilities. The third audience were the Berliners themselves, that who just in 1961, that's when the wall was started, a 100-mile long, 12-foot-high wall throughout the city. And then the Berliners remembered back in '48 with the Berlin airlift, when the Soviets blockaded all of Western Berlin. They weren't going to allow any rail, any water, any traffic into the city. And Harry Truman then provided the airlift for month after month after month, where we flew tons of everything from coal to toilet paper to chocolate from the candy bomber. And we flew it in for the people of Berlin. So it was a sensitive point in history. And Kennedy's appearance there really helped the Berliners to deal with that, with the reality of the wall that they saw every day.
What then was the, let's say, the short term of that within 5, 10 years, or even just 5, 10 months, if you will, going in and saying this, the general feel that it gave the Germans and the push that it gave them then at that difficult time, and how big was that moving forward?
I think there's 3 moments that you could point to. One is Harry Truman and the Marshall Plan, rebuilding Germany, forgiving Germany, and bringing Germany in as an ally within a few years after Hitler's reign. The third moment would be Ronald Reagan, of course, tear down that wall, and just putting an exclamation point behind this relationship. But sandwiched between those 2 bookends was this speech. And you saw a real warming of U.S.-German relations here. You saw this as a major victory in the Cold War. Trade between the 2 countries, alliances between the 2 countries are solidified, and this speech has a lot to do with that.
You mentioned the Soviets, too, because I think that's fair to say. We always think about he went there and he said this for the Germans and brought the German people together. But was this not that stick in the eye to the Soviets in many ways? Absolutely.
Well, you know, the Soviets were, they basically lost the showdown in 1948 with the Berlin airlift. They thought that complete blockade would weaken us. Truman said, we will fly planes in every hour for years if need be. And after month after month after month, the Soviets backed down. You could say that they blinked first in this duel that we were having, this game of chicken. But with the wall going up, the Soviets then thought they had a firm advantage. Because the deal was, of course, all of Germany is divided behind what Winston Churchill called the Iron Curtain. But Berlin was deep in the communist sector. So it wasn't that it was in the west, it was deep in the eastern sector. And with the wall there, the Soviets thought they had the advantage. Kennedy's speech, the enthusiasm from the crowd, really put an exclamation point after that. And the other thing that he wisely brought up was there was an exodus from East Germany. People were fleeing East Germany to get to the west before they built the wall, which was a great public relations victory for us. You know, when you have freedom on one side and communism on the other side, everyone is doing everything they can, risking their lives to get across the wall. He discussed that. And there's one more line later in the speech that was almost as good, but probably more powerful from a global political perspective. There were folks that said we should appease the Soviets. They built the wall, let's not antagonize them, let's try to work with them. Kennedy said no. He said, if that's the case, come to Berlin and come and see what they're doing and then see what we're doing on the West. So that was a strong line. In fact, so strong that when Kennedy gave his next speech, a little later after giving that, his advisors had him water down his remarks just a smidge because they thought it was a wee bit too muscular. But I think history has borne it out that it was the right thing to do at the right time.
I have less than a minute left. We could not get away with this by saying that I am still to this day ribbed by many people who will tell me that he either said we are all Berliners or we are all a jelly donut.
The answer's both.
It depends on which part of Germany you're from, correct?
Right, that's right. You could say, ich bin Berliner. And then it's clear that he was a Berliner, but ich bin ein Berliner, maybe he was the pastry that the German people like so much, a Berliner. And there was a lot of discussion of it afterward, but either way, whether we're a jelly donut or we're a Berliner, people got the gist. And quite frankly, Kennedy's charisma, he could have got up there and said, "Meu mama dog face to the banana patch." And people would have said, I'm with you, I'm right with you.
Well, he was that popular in America, too. He could basically say whatever he wanted at that point.
You know, not only were the words beautiful, but he had a sense of delivery. And I think the same with Reagan with the tear down this wall. These guys had a sense of timing. They had a sense of delivery. They could read the phone book, and people would have nodded their heads. But a great moment in history.
But remember, too, we are still all Berliners, and I'm keeping that. I'm not rolling on the jelly donut.
I know you're not.
Dr. Watson, thank you
pleasure.
so much for joining us. Those of you who even saw this speech and were there, tell us a little bit about it and the time in the Cold War, because certainly Kennedy helped to turn the tables with that speech. And, of course, remembering once again that, at least for today, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you are all Berliners. And I'm not even hungry at this point. Tell us what you think about it on social media. We'll talk about it here, because every day on Midpoint, we question everything.
Meet John and Nancy. They've spent their lives working hard and saving money, knowing that it would pay off in the end. But unfortunately, all that hard work and smart investing has gotten them nowhere. Then one day, John and Nancy picked up a free copy of Powerful Secrets to Achieve Superior Returns. This book revealed 24 little-known investments that put them back on track to a happy and secure retirement. Get your free copy of Powerful Secrets at myfinancialage.org.
Endless pools are an incredible alternative to traditional pools, making it easy and inexpensive to swim at home. Call our toll-free number or visit our website. A free idea kit and DVD will be sent to your home so you can discover all the benefits of owning your own pool. Compared to traditional pools, endless pools are simple to install, easy to maintain, and economical to run. Our precision-engineered pools enable you to swim or exercise against a smooth current that adjusts to any speed and ability. Endless pools are perfect for year-round health and fitness, relaxation, and family fun. Our free idea kit and DVD will show you how easy it is for the whole family to enjoy a pool right in your backyard or home. An endless pool or an endless pool swim spa can become a showplace for your home. Call our toll-free number or visit the website to find out more about endless pools. The free idea kit will show you just how easy it is to be able to swim at home.
The Great Recession and the financial crisis are finally over. The stock market is way up, and that means that now all senior homeowners are financially secure. Happy days are here again. Well, that's what they keep telling us, right? But if you're a senior, 62 or over, have you recovered financially? Have you magically replaced all your retirement money? Are you suddenly all set for retirement? With a government-backed reverse mortgage, you'll never make another mortgage payment again. Instead, you'll receive money in any number of different ways that you choose. The money you get is tax-free, and there are no restrictions on how to use it. With an all-new and improved reverse mortgage, you always retain ownership of your home, so you can age in place gracefully. And your mortgage does not have to be paid off to qualify.
It makes life much easier. That was the best thing I've ever done.
Call 1-800-548-6498, 1-800-548-6498.
You want to attend college so you can pursue your goals, but you may not be able to afford it. At ITT Tech, we're doing something to put a degree financially within your reach. The new ITT Tech Opportunity Scholarship is now available to eligible students who qualify. We believe education is a sound investment. Make a choice that can make a difference.
Call now to find out about the new Opportunity Scholarship from ITT Tech. 800-453-0319. 800-453-0319.
Time to wake up.
I've got a job to do today.
I've got a job to do today.
Don't forget, you've got a job to do today.
Hey, Mom. I got the job. Thanks.
I've got the job. Welcome aboard.
Have a good first day at work, Mom.
Your donations to Goodwill fund job training programs right in your community.
Feels good to start fresh, right?
Sure does. And like that, you're a job creator.
Welcome back, everybody. Ed Berliner here on Midpoint, just about ready to finish things out. So that means we head to New York City. Steve Malzberg is sitting by for the Steve Malzberg Show that will begin in a little bit. Steve, I fully am willing to admit that I was wrong Although, wait a minute, I feel like I should be Arthur Fonzarelli in that case, and here I'm really going to judge myself here and date myself. I couldn't exactly say it. I may not have predicted the win against Germany, but at least it is now the knockout round for the U.S. men's national team. Come on, you got to get excited about it, although I don't think, you're not much of a soccer guy, though. I really don't think. I know you like the American team, but I don't get that
nobody's
feeling.
really, no. Yeah, you know, people born in this country with no really, you know, I don't think look, soccer never took off. There was the Pele movement, the Pele craze, there's indoor soccer, there's all kinds of soccer leagues, but it's never taken off.
No, that is true. It has not taken off over the years. A lot of people talked about it. You're right. No, you're definitely right, because the NASL was there, the ASL was there, the MISL, a lot of them are there.
Yeah.
I was wrong. I'm willing to accept it, but we're in the knockout round.
I mean, I'm not glad Germany beat us. When I first heard that we advanced, I said, what was it, a tie? And they said, no, we actually lost. So we backed into it, and you know, we'll see how long we last. I hope we win, but I don't know what the prospects are. Remember, our German coach told us at the beginning we're not good enough to win the World Cup. So you know.
Come on, we're in there. All right, we can go ahead now. So they're in the knockout round, and I think it's fair to say that the Supreme Court delivered quite a knockout to President Obama today with his with this 9-0 ruling that his 3 appointments to the NLRB in 2012 were unlawful. I mean, this is a harsh rebuke of the president, and basically sets the stage for a lot of people who said that this is a president who continues to overstep his authority.
This is not unusual. 2 9-0 cases, but let's focus on that one. Yeah, I mean, the president didn't care. Just, you know, he was going to appoint these 3 people to the NLRB, made recess appointments when the Senate said we're not in recess, and every court along the way has ruled against him, and they took it to the Supreme Court, and 9-0 he was ruled against. Now, when this becomes habitual, or repetitive, let's say, it does signal a problem, and it does signal a reason for concern, I think, on the part of the American people, and we should be concerned. We shouldn't have to go to the Supreme Court and get a 9-0 ruling to make the president follow the Constitution, but apparently we do.
The thing that catches me of this, that of course the president has argued that the Senate was on an extended holiday break, and that the brief sessions it held were a sham. So he continues to, as many politicians do, Steve. They try to find the little things along the edges that they can whittle away at to basically get their way. There's a lot of people who feel that while he may have lost here, that there's a lot of presidents and a lot of folks down the road who are going to have to pay attention to this ruling, because it probably will affect a lot more people and a lot more presidents down the road.
Well, not only that, what's going to happen to the rulings the NLRB made with these 3 people in them?
Good point.
I mean, is that going to be overturned?
I mean, that's the next thing you have to worry. We haven't heard anything about that, but I guess that now you're going to have at least several lawsuits against the NLRB because of this.
I would imagine.
We haven't heard from the president yet. By the way, what's your take on the cell phone issue as well? That's something else that SCOTUS hit on.
Yeah, well, that was 9-0, and again, the Obama administration arguing against that ruling also came out on the losing end of a 9-0 decision yesterday. I think you know, it's different. If there's they said what's on somebody's cell phone is you need a warrant for it. You just don't routinely check somebody's cell phone, and I have no problem with that. I mean, if there's an exception, if it's a murder case or something, you know, that they think, or a drug deal or something. I mean, there are exceptions and exemptions, and it's very easy to get a warrant in a case like that. Get the phone, then go to court. But you know, I don't. I'm for privacy where possible, with good law enforcement as well.
10 seconds. Who you got coming up today?
Tom DeLay kicks it off for us, and we're going to talk to him about the lawsuit against the president by John Boehner and the Congress, and a bunch of other issues as well.
Perfect timing. Look at that, boy. You can tell a guy's been on radio and TV a long time. Steve, thanks a lot, partner. Have a good show. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thank you, Ed.
All right. Don't forget, tomorrow on Midpoint, right here, an exclusive insider interview with the militia group planning to make a human shield to stop illegal immigrant children at the border. That is coming up tomorrow right here. Rock on, true believers. Thank you so much for joining us. We're back again at it on a Friday right here on Midpoint, where every single day on the Newsmax TV network, we question everything.